Chapter 2561. Chu Yang turned his head in surprise and looked at Tai Butian. He said in surprise, "Tian Tian, although you are far from that level, your words now already have the taste of that kind of realization." Tai Butian smiled. "Is that so?" Her voice was actually a little downcast. Wu Qianqian also sighed quietly at this time. Chu Yang immediately understood. He held the two women in his arms and said softly, "Don't be disappointed. There will be a day when both of you will not be inferior to anyone. This is what I said. I firmly believe that my little wife is not inferior to anyone." Tai Butian and Wu Qianqian smiled at the same time. "Yes." Chu Yang hugged them tightly with some heartache. He said, "I'm sorry. I have indeed neglected this point in the past. It's my fault." The two women smiled contentedly. "You have already done very well. Whether as a man, a husband, a father, or a son, you have already done very well. Don't blame yourself. It's just that our own encounters are still a little lacking. We will catch up." Chu Yang really thought about it in his heart. Whether it was Tai Butian or Wu Qianqian, both of them had excellent aptitudes. They could be said to be geniuses. Moreover, both of them had once held high positions and commanded the world. Deep in their bones, they were the kind of people who did not think that they would be inferior to anyone. Every single one of them had the right to be proud of themselves. But after following Chu Yang, they had never encountered that kind of martial path. Being in high positions, they naturally did not have the kind of life and death tempering of the people of the martial world. Therefore, their cultivation had always been far behind others. This was undoubtedly a huge blow to the proud and arrogant women. Until they came to the Heaven Imperial Court, a world where martial arts were respected, they felt even more disappointed. But the two women had always been suppressing the disappointment in their hearts. They helped Chu Yang in other aspects in their own way and played their roles to Chu Yang. But today, when they saw that everyone else was comprehending, only the two of them could not go any further because of their insufficient level, they could not help but feel even more upset. Although the two of them also firmly believed that one day, they would eventually catch up with their footsteps. But it would take time. Chu Yang was aware of this point. He really blamed himself for his carelessness. He secretly made up his mind, in the future, he would try his best to create more opportunities for the two girls in this aspect so that they could slowly regain their confidence in martial arts. Just like in politics, in the imperial court, and on the battlefield, that kind of grandeur of holding the world in his hands and ruling over the world was also present in the peak state of martial arts in front of people. In fact, no woman would be willing to just be a man's vassal. This was especially true for proud and arrogant women. Even if that man was the one she loved the most, it was still the same. Loving one's wife didn't mean that one had to satisfy all their material needs. More importantly, one had to return the sky that originally belonged to her. Let her soar in her own domain. This valley now completely belongs to all of us. Should we give it a name? Tai Butian quickly suppressed her inexplicable sense of loss and said with a smile. As a former emperor, a very qualified and perfect emperor, Tai Butian could control her emotions perfectly. After losing control a little earlier, she quickly regained her composure and took the initiative to talk about a topic that was more suitable for the current situation. "All right," Chu Yang said, "come and discuss a name. How about Tongtian Holy Land?" Tai Butian smiled sweetly. "Good name." Chu Yang and Wu Qianqian cheered at the same time. Whether it was now or in the future, after the heavenly treasures in this secret place were formed, this place would definitely be a Tongtian Holy Land. Chu Yang immediately decided to leave this name on the mountain peak. When Chu Yang used the calamity sword to carve these 4 words on the mountain wall, Dong Wushang was the first to come out of seclusion. He was in high spirits. Obviously, the initial results of this cultivation session were already showing. His cultivation had improved a lot. Everyone was the same. As long as they really found the direction of their future, they would stop this cultivation session. The reason why they didn't deliberately take a step further was because they didn't have the time. There were still many things that needed to be done outside. They might have already missed a lot during this period of time. They couldn't afford any more delays. On this day, The last sacrificial maiden also finally came out of seclusion. Everyone couldn't wait to leave the valley together. The Jianghu was probably already in chaos, right? No one knew how many things had happened in the past month or so. Before leaving the valley, Mo Tianji once again arranged everything in this valley. He also arranged even more defensive formations in the surroundings to ensure that no one would be able to enter this place. What kind of people can enter this valley? Chu Yang asked. After I cast a spell to seal that passage. Mo Tianji said, other than those who are at least 100 times stronger than me, only those who are blessed by the heavens can enter this place by chance. As he spoke, Mo Tianji blinked and revealed a mischievous expression. So you're also never tired of this kind of bad taste? Chu Yang laughed. Then you must have left something else in there. Just a few words. There's nothing specific. Mo Tianji smiled. Also, I have a feeling that in the future, who knows how many tens of thousands of years later, someone will come here and get the things inside. I can even conclude that after this person gets these things, he will definitely become a legend. Mo Tianji said, this. Although I may not be under this sky by then, the legends here are still created by me. Just thinking about it makes me feel good. As expected, you also have this idea, ha ha ha, everyone laughed together. I really don't know what kind of person will be created here. Mo Leia looked back as she walked. She was reluctant to leave. With the density of the spiritual energy here, I'm afraid that in less than 1,000 years, it will form spirit spring stalactite. In 10,000 years, it will form spirit crystals. In 50,000 years, it will form immortal mountains and dragon veins. From then on, it will have a long history. If someone really gets it, then this person may still be able to see us in the future. After talking about such a distant place, Chu Yang thought of many people for some reason. As he said this, Chu Yang thought of the peak of the void and that majestic and magical palace. And that white-robed young man. And that evil young man that he had talked to several times before. And a name that he had mentioned before. He seemed to be called Old Black. He thought of some helper, some ethereal, something. He couldn't help but sigh and murmur, actually, there are two paths in life. One path is from life to death, the other path is from life to immortality. These two paths are destined to be unavoidable. Those who deserve to die, no matter how hard they work, no matter how many paths they have taken, only death is left in the end. And those who can reach the level of immortality are the same. No matter how difficult it is, no matter what path they take, the end is still the word immortality. Chu Yang's argument was unique, and it made everyone fall into contemplation. All the way until they walked out of the valley, no one spoke. They were all quietly thinking and deliberating. Everyone was carefully digesting the meaning of these two sentences. After a long, long time, everyone actually sighed at the same time. Then, everyone burst into laughter again. Because everyone saw the light in front of them. Everyone had already walked out of the valley. What appeared in front of them was the terrifying forest. Only when they stepped back into this place did Mo Tianji's intelligence network regain its function. His Heavenly Secrets plate and Heavenly Secrets hand could also be used again. Almost at the instant when Mo Tianji took out the Heavenly Secrets plate, he immediately frowned. One after another, streaks of light flashed on the Heavenly Secrets plate. Every streak of light here represented a piece of information. In just an instant, there were already thousands of streaks of light flashing. Furthermore, the Heavenly Secrets plate was still receiving information continuously and was still flashing. Mo Tianji sighed softly, I'm afraid we have really missed out on many things. My Heavenly Secrets plate only recorded 50 pieces of information a day ago. If it was just an ordinary matter, they wouldn't have specially informed me. But now, looking at the densely packed and flashing Heavenly Secrets plate, everyone was speechless and even more worried. During this period of time, something big must have happened. Otherwise, the Heavenly Army Intelligence Network wouldn't have contacted Mo Tianji so frequently. The extraterrestrial demons have sent reinforcements to Purple Cloud Heavens and are eyeing covetously. Both sides are on the verge of war. It is said that the main reason for the extraterrestrial demons' actions this time is because of a large-scale spatial collapse in their homeland. They have no choice but to increase the intensity of their attacks on the Heavenly Imperial Court. They want to occupy the Heavenly Imperial Court's territory and gain more living space. Mo Tianji's first piece of information was extremely shocking. Everyone didn't say anything and quietly waited for Mo Tianji to continue. The Saint has issued an order to the entire Heavenly Imperial Court to eliminate the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. All the official forces, private forces, and sects in the Heavenly Imperial Court must cooperate fully to eliminate the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. If they don't comply, kill them without mercy. The reason is, because the Heavenly Armament Pavilion is the vanguard of the extraterrestrial demons against the Heavenly Imperial Court. Mo Tianji smiled bitterly. This was the second piece of information and it made everyone frown tightly. They cursed softly. We are the vanguard of the extraterrestrial demons. Motherfucker, this saint doesn't have a chin when he opens his mouth. Chapter 2562. The great Emperor Xie of the Green Firmament Heavenly Emperor immediately tried to negotiate with the Heavenly Armament Pavilion because of the Great Sage's order to ban the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. After that, the negotiations were to no avail. Ao Xie angrily announced that the Green Firmament Heavenly Emperor would immediately leave the Heavenly Imperial Court's territory and form its own sect. Furthermore, they are using iron-blooded methods to purge the clear sky heavens. Currently, the evil Cloud Great Emperor and the Heavenly Imperial Palace are in a standoff. The situation is critical and could erupt at any moment. This was the third piece of important news, which was directly related to one of the tribulations. Everyone's mood naturally became heavier and heavier. For Ao Xie to do such a thing, it was obvious that the situation was so severe that Ao Xie could not tolerate it. He could only go to extremes. Mo Yuntian and Ji Tian chose to remain neutral. It is said that they are waiting for the return of their Heavenly Emperor. However, the battle between the two worlds is already in full swing. Mo Tianji sighed. Everyone nodded. That made sense. Mo Yuntian and Extreme Heaven were originally the world of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Although they were no longer bandits and had the title of Heavenly Emperor, they were still the Heavenly Armament Pavilion in the past. How could he not be angry about this targeted news? And those who chose to oppose him should be the original people of the two great heavens and earth, as well as the people from the Lord's side. In addition, there were probably some forces who were trying to fish in troubled waters. Dong Wushong and Xiedan Qiong, the two great celestial emperors, were not overseeing this heaven. Without a leader, not only were they unable to do anything big, they also had to guard against the underlings of the Holy Monarch, causing chaos in the two heavens. In the big Western Sky battle, the Holy Emperor's palace's side acted at a crucial moment, causing Jiyu Duxing's side to suffer a great defeat, with corpses strewn everywhere. Jiyu Duxing and Biyu Liu Qing were seriously injured, and their whereabouts are unknown. This news made the faces of Chu Yang and the others change drastically. He was burning with anxiety. Donghuang Shuelehan has announced to the world that she does not support Sage Monarch's decision to ban the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Furthermore, he clearly said that the Saint Monarch was trying to eliminate the dissidents and shake the foundation of the Heaven Imperial Court. The war of words between both sides is already in full swing. Currently, the Eastern Royal Heaven is preparing for war. When the Demon Empress was on her way back to the Demon Emperor Heaven path, she was ambushed by a large number of unknown individuals. Heavily injured, he returned to the Demon Emperor sky. It is said that it was done by extraterrestrial demons. The Saint Emperor Palace is encircling and annihilating the Heavenly Armament Pavilion of the Demon Emperor Heaven, and the forces of the Demon Emperor Heaven are protecting them with all their might. Blood has already flowed like a river. Mo Tianji's face was heavy. He turned his head to look at Jimo, Luo Kudi, and Rui Biyu Tong, Jimo's Heavenly Armament Pavilion. It had already been completely destroyed, and some of its remaining forces had wandered about the world. Luo Kedi. The forces that Yu and Biyu Tong established have also been scattered. Currently, there are many casualties. Those who are lucky enough to survive have basically disappeared without a trace. Sai Niang, the Tianqiu wolves under your command, have also been beaten to a pulp. Tan Tan's heavenly armament pavilion was directly annihilated. Tan Tan was enraged. He single-handedly fought against the great experts of Kai Bei Heavenly Emperor Yang Yang, Long Yinghuan, and severely injured 4 of them. Tan Tan was seriously injured, and his whereabouts were unknown, the only good news at the moment. Even Mo Huachen and exalted Celestial Emperor Zi Wuji had declared their support for the Eastern Monarch's decision. Moreover, it is said that under the Sage's rage, these 2 great heavens and earth have already turned into battlefield. Mo Tianji's face was filled with worry. The Heaven Imperial Court has now become a huge battlefield. It's rare to have a stable place where there is no battle. Many great experts who have been in seclusion for many years have come out of seclusion. All the secret forces of the Celestial Emperors have also reappeared in the world. All the secret organizations have appeared one after another. All kinds of assassin organizations that have never walked under the sun have come out of nowhere. Everyone has participated in this great calamity. All the great sects have come out in full force, each choosing to support their own heavens and earth. The world is also a mess. This is all that has happened in this 1 month in this valley. The entire Heaven Imperial Court can be considered to have started a major reshuffle. This world is completely in chaos. This series of explosive news was simply a series of thunderbolts. It smashed the 10 people who had just come out of the valley until they were dizzy. For a moment, they were at a loss of what to do. Speaking of which, if it was really a series of thunderbolts, they wouldn't be surprised. Even those ladies weren't afraid of thunder. However, this series of news really shocked them. They were even a little dumbfounded. Jimo, Luo Kudi, Rui Biu Tong, Tan Tan. The heavenly armament pavilion that these people had painstakingly built after many years of hard work had been beaten to a pulp. If it was purely the collapse of the heavenly armament pavilion, that would be fine. With people coming and going, there would be people coming and going. If it was gone, it could be rebuilt and gathered again. However, the news of the brothers was also extremely bad. Tan Tan was seriously injured and his whereabouts were unknown. Jiyu Duxing and Biyu Liuqing were defeated and their whereabouts were unknown. Xie Danfeng, Huyen Aobo, Jiyu Miao Ling, and the other brothers. The subordinates of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion? How many of them were already gone? Over at the Demon Emperor Heaven, an open battle had already begun. Suddenly, in all directions, there were too many things that they couldn't let go of happening. For a moment, everyone's hearts were in a mess and they couldn't calm down. Chu Yang and Mo Tianji's faces were also as heavy as water. They were speechless for a long time. The other brothers' eyes were as if they were about to spit fire and their noses were panting. "Big brother, what do you think we should do now?" Dong Wushong was the first to jump up. He was a little impatient. "Should we go out immediately and kill those sons of B***keys? Kill them?" "Sure." Mo Tianji slowly raised his head. "But I would like to ask, how do you plan to kill those people?" Mo Tianji and Chu Yang's expressions were as calm and serene. The worse the situation was, the calmer the reaction of the 2 of them became. It was like an ancient well without any ripples. Because both of them knew and understood that if the 2 of them were to become anxious at this time, then it would really be over for them. "Everyone, go back to your original areas of influence and reorganize your forces. We will fight to the death with them. With our foundation, we will definitely be able to fight. Let's do it," Dong Wushong said fiercely with a murderous aura. "If this is your overall strategy, I can only give you one word: stupid." Mo Tianji shouted. "Now, shut up immediately." Dong Wushong's lips moved as if he still wanted to argue. Mo Tianji and Chu Yang's gazes followed him like shadows. Xie Dan Qiong hurriedly pulled Dong Wushong's sleeves to stop him from speaking. Dong Wushong immediately fell silent like a deflated balloon, panting heavily. Mo Tianji paced slowly. Chu Yang frowned and his eyes almost froze. Firstly, the extraterrestrial demons just had to send reinforcements to Purple Cloud Heavens at this very moment. Chu Yang said dispassionately, Let's not talk about whether the space over at the extraterrestrial demon's lair has really collapsed. Just the timing alone is a little off. If this is the case, we can get a preliminary hypothesis. There is a high chance that the saint and the extraterrestrial demons have some kind of connection. Mo Tianji nodded. Yes, the timing of this invasion is too coincidental. Even if there is no connection between them, it will become a connection. Furthermore, it seems to be to create a reason. At the very least, we can all be sure that the demon empress being heavily injured was definitely not the work of some otherworldly demons. If the otherworldly demons were really able to hide so many experts one day, I believe that directly occupying that day would definitely not be a difficult matter. Chu Yang nodded. But it won't be the saint who did it personally. I believe the saint won't be so unwise to do it personally at this time. The two of them looked at each other and said at the same time, since the saint can still severely injure the demon empress without personally doing it, it means that the saint still has a lot of hidden experts. Ordinary experts can't injure the demon empress, who is at the pinnacle. In other words, in a specific environment, pinnacle experts. Yes, is it possible that the demon empress was already injured before this? Chu Yang frowned. When we left the extreme heaven, only the demon empress was restraining the saint. With the demon empress temper, it's not strange for her to fight with the saint. With the saint's temperament, he wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity to severely injure or even kill the demon empress. As long as the demon empress battle strength is not at full strength, and there are a few experts besieging her, and if there is a relatively special geographical environment, this guess is also very possible. However, even if the demon empress was injured to a certain extent before, it's still not something that an ordinary pinnacle expert can injure again. Mo Tianji said with certainty, I'm more inclined to believe that the saint has other unknown forces, and this force is still abnormally strong. What can a million-years-old myriad saint's true spirit cultivate? It's really something that we can't predict. Mo Tianji frowned and said, at least this part of the strength has to be separated from the known complete region of the Saint Emperor Palace. Moreover, we can't underestimate it at all. Everyone nodded slowly. Other than that, there's also the turmoil in the few heavens. The Eastern Royal Heaven has the Eastern Royal Emperor personally overseeing it, so there shouldn't be a big problem. The Demon Emperor Heaven has already started fighting. Jiu Du Xing and Bu Liu Qing also need reinforcements. Ji Mo, Bu Tong, Tan Tan, Little Wolf, and the other heavens are also in chaos and need reinforcements. Ao Xieyun's side is also on the verge of erupting. In short, we need manpower in all aspects. We can't delay any longer and it's extremely urgent. But the current situation definitely doesn't allow us to divide our forces. Once we divide our forces, I'm afraid we'll be playing right into the saint's hand. He'll easily find an opportunity to defeat us one by one. Then what do you think we should do? Dong Wushong and Ji Mo roared at the same time. Are we just going to watch our brothers suffer and do nothing? Chapter 2563. Shut up. Chu Yang roared and interrupted their questioning. If you two only know how to say such words, then don't say them anymore. What we need now is to calm down. Any negligence will only lead to more serious consequences. It won't be of any help. Do you understand? If these words had been said by Mo Tianji, Dong Wushong and Ji Mo would probably have argued a little more. But these words had come from Chu Yang's mouth, so the two of them immediately shut up. No one could question Big Boss Chu Yang's authority, and no one was allowed to blaspheme. On Mo Tianji's forehead, blue veins were throbbing. He said, it's useless to be anxious now. The most important task now is to find a quiet and safe place to stay. Dong Wushong, Ji Mo, Luo Ku Di are in charge of patrol and protection. Me, Boss, Qing Wu, the two sisters-in-law, Lei Le Dan Qiong, Bu Tong, Sai Niang and I need to have a meeting to sort out the chaotic situation. He took a deep breath. This is a critical moment. We can't make any mistakes. No one is allowed to act rashly. In this period of time, Tianji's words are equivalent to my words. Going against Tianji is equivalent to going against my word. Chu Yang added. Chu Yang was really afraid that the brothers here would rush to help in a moment of anger. That would be really bad. There was no doubt that Dong Wushong, Jimo, Luo Kudi and Rui Biu Tong were all capable of doing such a thing, so it was better to take precautions early. Why didn't you call us for a meeting? Luo Kudi had just shouted when Chu Yang glared at him fiercely. Why didn't I call you? It's because of your bad habit of always yelling. Mo Tianji said fiercely. From now on, if any of you dare to say another word, you'll be demoted to the youngest immediately. Boss said it just now. I'm a man of my word now. The three of them immediately kept quiet out of fear. They really didn't dare to say another word. Chu Yang's heart sank. It could be seen from Mo Tianji's reaction that the situation had worsened to such an extent. Mo Tianji was actually so furious. He even wanted to gather everyone's strength to sort out the entire situation. He even wanted to stop Dong Wushong and the others. He even wanted to borrow Chu Yang's words. Judging from the current situation, the fog that Chu Yang felt in his mind was probably also in Mo Tianji's mind. Furthermore, Mo Tianji was in a complete mess because so many of his brothers had met with mishap at the same time. At this stage, there were no important targets to pay attention to. Because accidents were happening everywhere, every place should be a target worth paying attention to. He simply couldn't manage it. A short while later, a cave made of stone was formed, and the three guards went out to guard it. They formed the first line of defense. After that, Dong Wushong, Luo Kudi, and Ji Mo were driven out to form the second line of defense. The other 10 people sat in a circle with heavy expressions on their faces. The participants were Chu Yang, Mo Qingwu, and Mo Tianji, Tai Butian and Wu Qianqian, Mo Lei Chu Le Sai Niang, Rui Butong, Xie Danqiong. Mo Tianji took the initiative to add to the discussion. Then, everyone suggested that Tai Butian take charge of the overall situation. Chu Yang and Tai Biu Tian were full of praise for this decision. This was because Mo Tianji had clearly realized that even though he was trying his best to act as if nothing had happened, his heart had already become somewhat chaotic. He had almost lost his mind, and it was difficult for him to maintain a calm heart that was able to see through everything. This matter ultimately concerned the safety of many of his brothers. If he focused on one, he would lose sight of the others. Yet, he couldn't bear to give up on anyone. To put it bluntly, Mo Tianji now might not be as good as Dong Wushong and the others. They rushed to provide support in a moment of hot-headedness, and had only one goal. Thus, they had fewer concerns, and it was easier for them to position themselves. Mo Tianji needed to be in charge of the overall situation, and consider everything thoroughly. But in the current situation, how could he take care of everything? Thus, Mo Tianji was even more confused now. At this time, Tai Butian, the emperor who once controlled the world, used the heart of a ruler to analyze and make a choice. This was the most appropriate choice. Now, all of you are too anxious, so you have lost your composure. Tianji clearly knows that he can't be anxious at this time, and he can use this to criticize others. But it's ineffective when it comes to himself. Tai Butian said calmly, "Indeed, major changes are happening in these heavens and earth. Every side is in an atmosphere of struggle, and the situation is precarious. Every side is our brothers. We have our brothers, and we can't abandon them. But now, we have to be clear about where we are needed the most. Also, what is the Saint Lord's purpose in deliberately creating such a chaotic situation? The Saint Lord won't blindly take revenge." Even though Tai Butian's words weren't cold, they were like a basin of cold water that was poured over everyone's heads. Now, let's first eliminate those unnecessary places. Tai Butian drew a big circle on the empty space in front of her with the scabbard, and then marked the names of the heavens and earth in the circle. Then, the scabbard first pointed at the 3 words purple clouds heavens and said calmly, "Even though the extraterrestrial demons will be our greatest enemy in the future, the purple clouds heavens now has the previous tribulation holding the fort, and there's also that mysterious white fog as the final barrier. As long as this final line of defense is still there, I believe that there shouldn't be any major unbearable changes in the short term. Therefore, the purple clouds heavens can be eliminated." It's not within the scope of our attention this time. With a stroke of the scabbard, the purple cloud's heavens was instantly gone. The Eastern Royal Heavens has the Eastern Royal Emperor personally holding the fort. It's the most powerful and has long been prepared. Therefore, the Eastern Royal Heavens also doesn't need any reinforcements and can also be eliminated. In fact, if even the Eastern Royal Heavens has fallen, there's no point for us to rush over. The choice in this area is very obvious. The Eastern Royal Heavens was also removed. There's also the Ink Sky, Xiedanqiang side, and the Extreme Heaven, Dong Wushang side. Because the Heavenly Emperor of their respective heavens isn't around, there's no leader, and there's also someone who wants to sow discord, so they've been quarreling all this time. The situation is very chaotic, and, since they're quarreling and in chaos, I believe that as long as there's no major inducement, they definitely won't fight. Or rather, it can be said that there's nothing to worry about for the time being. Therefore, these two heavens can also be eliminated. We can even transfer some of the trusted experts from these two heavens and send them to other places as reinforcements. Even if there's chaos in these two heavens and earth, as long as Dong Wushang and Xiedanqiang return personally one day, they'll be able to settle it instantly. Tai Butian removed the Extreme Heaven and Ink Sky. At this point, the circle on the ground had become much simpler. Everyone's mood also gradually calmed down. Tai Butian frowned and pointed at the Buddha sky and Daluotian sky with her scabbard. After pondering for a moment, she said, "Now that the Buddha sky Emperor Mo Huachen and the Daluotian sky Emperor Zi Wuji have already made it clear that they're willing to stand on the side of the Eastern Royal Heavens, there's no big problem in these two heavens and earth. As long as the local forces don't interfere, Jimo's Heavenly Armament Pavilion, Luo Kedi's Heavenly Armament Pavilion, and Siniang's pack of wolves won't really be wiped out. At the very least, there's a great chance of turning things around. Therefore, because there's no possibility of absolute annihilation in these two heavens and earth, we can temporarily eliminate them. As for the experts of Holy Emperor Palace, they're the minority after all. Although there'll definitely be sacrifices, we can't care about them now. I'm not being heartless when I say this, and I believe you can understand. Moreover, even if there's a sacrifice, it'll be too late before you return." As she spoke, Tai Butian removed the two heavens and earth. Everyone nodded. Jimo, Luo Kedi, and Siniang all nodded in agreement. What Tai Butian said was indeed reasonable. Although such an analysis was already calm to the point of being almost callous, it was exactly what was needed now. Green Sky Heavens. Now the entire territory has already fallen into Ao Sheyun's hands. Although there's still a confrontation, although it's on the verge of breaking out, this just shows that Ao Sheyun has already stabilized the situation. Therefore, there's no need to worry about this heavens and earth for the time being. As she spoke, Tai Butian removed this heavens and earth as well. As for Demon Emperor Heaven, now it's fallen into an extremely chaotic battlefield. The situation seems to be extremely dangerous, but in fact, it's not really that bad. First of all, almost everyone there is on our side, and there's also Yaro Ningtai's full support. It can be said that it's the foundation of our base camp. Under the leadership of such an advantageous force, I believe that in the short term, there won't be any major incidents. Especially at this stage, the Demon Empress has already returned to Demon Emperor Heaven. Even if she's seriously injured, there's still nothing to worry about with her holding the fort. Tai Butian said indifferently, "Moreover, it's precisely because of the Demon Empress injury that Demon Emperor Heaven will instead be more united against a common enemy. Therefore, the Demon Emperor Heaven can also be removed. In the end, only the big Western Heavens, the South Pole Heavens, and the Kaibei Heavens were left. Most of the territories had already been removed by Tai Butian one after another." Mo Tianji let out a deep breath at this moment. Tai Butian was pondering, and her beautiful brows were slightly knitted. Finally, she pointed the hilt of her sword at Kaibei Tian. The Heavenly Armament Pavilion founded by Tantan didn't have many people to begin with. It can be said that it's the weakest side of all the Heavenly Armament Pavilions. This isn't necessarily the main reason why Tantan's side lost. However, this weakness may not necessarily be a bad thing. With weak strength, there are fewer people. After losing, there are relatively fewer scruples, since Tan Tan still had the strength to escape after fighting the 4 great experts alone, then he must have taken Dan Feng with him. Otherwise, with Tan Tan's character, he would have rather fought to the death than give up on Xie Dan Feng. In this way, although Tan Tan is seriously injured, there's still no danger to his life when he's with Dan Feng. At most, he'll completely abandon the heavenly armament pavilion over there. Therefore, this Kai Bei Tian can also be ignored for the time being. Chapter 2564. The South Pole is where Rui Bu Tong's heavenly armament pavilion is located. The power that Rui Bu Tong developed is greatly different from the other heavenly armament pavilions. He devoted himself to cultivating a group of thieves. Although in a general sense, their strength is relatively weak, but in terms of escaping, these people actually have a considerable advantage. Moreover, each person has their own specialty, and their ability to survive is even stronger. From Rui Bu Tong, it's not hard to deduce the personalities of the people following him. Most of them should be well hidden. Tai Bu Tian faintly smiled. Therefore, the South Pole can also be temporarily excluded. After eliminating one by one, there was finally only one target left. The big western sky. Jiu Du Xing's sighed. Everyone's hearts unexpectedly became a lot clearer at this time, as if they had a lot more assurance out of thin air. So much so that when Tai Bu Tian said, from Rui Bu Tong, it's not hard to deduce the personalities of the people following him. Most of them should be well hidden, they actually couldn't help but laugh. Rui Bu Tong muttered something, but no one knew what he was saying. Right now, only the big western skies side. That is, the place where Jiu Du Xing, Jiu Miao Ling, and Bu Liu Qing are located, is the most dangerous place. At the same time, it's also the place that most urgently needs help. Tai Bu Tian raised her head, thought for a bit, and said, just now, the intelligence also said, in the big western skies battle, at the moment when the battle was intense, the Holy Emperor Palace's power suddenly made a move. In the intelligence of the other worlds, there is no similar intelligence. From this sentence, we can see that the main target of the Holy Emperor's attack. It's the big western skies Jiu Du Xing. Moreover, this information is very likely deliberately released by the Holy Emperor. Tai Bu Tian's brows furrowed. Therefore, the big western sky is the place where we have no choice but to save. It's also the most dangerous trap laid down by the Holy Emperor. I even suspect that the Holy Emperor himself is over there in the big western sky, waiting for us to walk right into the trap. Tai Bu Tian faintly said, we just destroyed his myriad holy true spirit base, and destroyed one of his doppelgangers. It's impossible for the Holy Emperor not to retaliate. And his retaliation, I judge, is most likely here. Tai Bu Tian finished speaking. Tai Bu Tian quietly thought for a while. After confirming that her thoughts and speculations didn't miss anything, she finally smiled faintly. As for the rest, do you have anything else to add? There was absolute silence. After a long time, Mo Tianji replayed what Tai Bu Tian had just said in his mind over and over again. Then, he looked at the map on the ground again and drew it again. He couldn't help but sigh and say, "Boss, heaven-mending sister-in-law is truly amazing. She is as meticulous as dust, worthy of being an emperor of a generation, a character who ruled over the world." Chu Yang pretended to be humble. You flatter me, he spoke humbly. However, he did not hide his proud expression at all. Mo Tianji shook his head. What's your name? I am not praising you. What are you so proud of? Don't say I didn't warn you. Don't let Bu Tian Soro down in the future. With Bu Tian Soro's intelligence, let alone you, even if she wanted to scheme against me, I could only wait for bad luck. In the past, I really underestimated everyone in the world. Diwu Qing Ru too. Tai Bu Tian blushed and didn't say anything. Chu Yang forced a smile and said with an awkward face, how would I dare to let Bu Tian down? Don't talk about doing it, I don't even dare to think about it. Bah, I have never thought about it. Your Bu Tian Soro is so wise, how would I? Actually, what Bu Tian thought of, you can also think of it. If I put my mind to it, I might not have thought of it either. However, Our minds are a little muddled. Chu Yang's words paused again and again. The entire place was in an uproar and full of laughter. Fortunately, Dong Wushong, Luo Kudi, and Jimo had gone outside. Otherwise, who knew what kind of laughter there would be? However, there was still Rui Bu Tong. His laughter never stopped. It was unknown whether he was laughing at Mo Tianji or Boss Chu. Mo Qingwu suddenly thought of something and said, "Second brother, you call sister Tian Tian Sao. Shouldn't you also call me Sao?" Mo Tianji roared angrily, "Get lost. Little girl, you are really going against the heavens." Everyone laughed even harder when they saw this. This plan is completely feasible. Even if I personally planned it, it wouldn't be much better than this. Mo Tianji took a deep breath. Although we clearly know that the big western sky is a trap, right now, we still have no choice but to jump. We have no choice. Everyone slowly nodded, expressing their approval. A spider's web may be able to catch mosquitoes, but can it catch a tiger? Chu Yang's eyes once again shone with a sharp divine light. Everyone roared in agreement. That's right. Since that's the case, let's immediately set out and go to the big western sky first. Mo Tianji waved his hand. Okay. Even though the road ahead was already set, when everyone walked out, they were still worried. They were still concerned about their brothers in other worlds. However, they had already steeled their convictions. The road had to be walked step by step. A meal had to be eaten one bite at a time. Being impatient and panicked was useless. To save a crisis, they had to slowly save an emergency. Right now, they could only do this. First, they had to start from the most dangerous place. It's just that we have to go to the extreme heavens first. Mo Tianji's sudden words made everyone stare blankly. Right now, the top priority was to go to the big western sky. Wasn't this already decided? Why did they have to go to the extreme heavens? Could it be that Mo Tianji had overturned the already decided plan in such a short time? What kind of explanation was this? Only Tai Bu Tian, Wu Qian, and Chu Yang's gazes shone. They already had an understanding in their hearts. His mind had recovered its calm, and Mo Tianji's mind had once again calmed down. Right now, going to the extreme heavens was indeed the best choice. Right now, we can't directly go to the big western sky. If we rashly go, there's a big chance that we'll beat the grass and scare the snake. Mo Tianji said heavily, although the Saint Monarch side has already set up an inescapable net in the big western sky, waiting for us to jump in, although we ultimately have to go, and also have the confidence to break through the inescapable net. However, there's always been a big risk. Seizing a bit of an opportunity will be enough to overturn the final outcome of both sides. Especially, the Saint Monarch himself is in the big western sky. This is undoubtedly the most difficult place for us. Therefore, this is an unexpected opportunity. We'll certainly create it. However, if we want to create this kind of opportunity, there's a crucial point. This opportunity must have enough of a sound, and it must have enough of a deterrent effect on the Saint Monarch side. Therefore, I've decided that we'll first go to the extreme heavens, and our goal will be the Saint Emperor's Palace. Mo Tianji's eyes had an unprecedented ruthlessness. Destroy the Saint Emperor's Palace. We'll use a thorough method of revenge to thoroughly destroy it. This will make people realize that we're carrying out a deliberate act of revenge. Originally, the Saint Emperor's Palace is a very difficult place to chew on, so much so that it's basically impossible to chew on a hard bone. Not only is there a Saint Monarch stationed here, there are also countless hidden experts. If this place was in normal times, even if we gathered all of our battle strength, we still might not be able to capture it. But right now, the timing is just right. First, the Saint Monarch certainly isn't overseeing this place. Second, of the experts that previously besieged and heavily injured the Demon Empress, even if there were a portion of the Saint Monarch's hidden strength, there would certainly be a considerable portion of the Saint Emperor's hidden experts. Third, the Saint Monarch's subordinate forces wantonly annihilated the heavenly armament pavilions everywhere. They also certainly include many experts from the Saint Emperor's Palace. In summary, the Saint Emperor's Palace is certainly at its weakest right now. It's the most vulnerable time, And as long as we do it as much as possible, and destroy it as much as possible, the big western skies side will certainly have some changes in form. Even if their main forces can't make it back in time, there will certainly be a considerable degree of slack in their mentality. The most crucial point is that there are many proofs that our main forces are still in the extreme heavens. This can give them a misconception. As long as there is this misconception, the people in the big western sky will have a certain degree of slack in the big western skies situation. What we need is this bit of slack, and this bit of slack can be transformed into an opportunity for us to seize the victory in the big western sky. Moreover, it can reduce the pressure on Gu-duxing. During the march, I'll seize the opportunity to gather information and determine Gu-duxing's whereabouts. If there's a need, there's no harm in boss imitating Gu-duxing's sword intent and using this to massacre the Saint Emperor's palace, in the name of the solitary emperor, Mo Tianji said. Brilliant plan, Chu Yang exclaimed in admiration. However, Dong Wushong and Xiedan Qiong can't show themselves in this battle. Mo Tianji said, we can't give them any reason to start a war in Mo Yun and Saint Emperor's heavens. Therefore, the two of you can rush to the big western sky first, but your whereabouts must be concealed. Dong Wushong and Xiedan Qiong's spirits were shaken. That's right, Lei Yi should also go together. Ensure that your whereabouts are absolutely concealed. I believe that this point is the Black Devil's specialty. Mo Tianji's voice suddenly became serious. Xiedan Qiong, you and Mo Lei Yi, the two of you must keep an eye on Dong Wushong. You mustn't act blindly without thinking and affect the overall situation. The two of them solemnly agreed. This time, the two of you are secretly going to have an important mission, and that is to do your best to find Gu-duxing and rescue him. Ensure his safety. Chu Yang repeatedly exhorted, Lei Yi, Dan Qiong, I'll leave this matter to the two of you. Dong Wushong listened from the side and already couldn't wait to turn around and leave. Mo Lei Yi and Xiedan Qiong solemnly said, as long as second brother Jiyu isn't dead right now, even if we have to risk our lives, we must ensure his and second sister-in-law's safety. Please, you two go. Chu Yang took a deep breath. Okay. We'll meet again in the big western sky. A figure rose into the air. Dong Wushong, Xiedan Qiong, Mo Lei Yi, and Mo Yuntian, the three great bodyguards. Immediately, when they were 30 feet above the ground, they turned into a rainbow and flew across the sky. It was clear that these people were truly impatient. Cough cough, I really did my best. How many threads do I have to straighten out for an 8 million word book? This kind of outburst is already the limit. Give me a few monthly votes to comfort me. There's also a happy matter. Our family's world-defying stage game is going to be officially open beta tomorrow. I hope that the game adaptation of this novel can satisfy everyone. Right now, a lot of book fans are playing inside, and the reviews are not bad. I also took some time to go in and play for a while. Yes, the one called Handsome Fongling in the game is me. This name suits my personal image very well. Everyone, please don't bully me when you see this tilde ha. Speaking of which, I'm actually very strong. Be careful that you don't get bullied by me. Official website address, S37. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., World-Defying Stage will be officially open beta. Similarly, we'll see you in the game. Chapter 2565. The three great guards might be a bit better, but Dong Wushong and the other two going to the big western sky, I'm afraid, it's the same as releasing 3 death gods from hell. Or the name Black Devil will really resound through the sky of the heavenly imperial court. Mo Tianji watched the three people's rainbows flash by and disappear. He smiled bitterly and said, no matter what Gu-duxing's current situation is, before we go, the big western sky will certainly be turned upside down by them. There is no need to doubt this. Of course. Chu Yang said matter-of-factly, they dared to treat our brothers like this. Why can't we kill them until they turn the sky upside down? Not only will they kill, but I will also kill. Chu Yang took the lead and went, Saint Emperor's Palace, this place, if I go today, it's already destined that I won't be able to survive. Mo Tianji and the others followed soon after. They could completely understand the fury in Chu Yang's heart. The whereabouts of so many brothers were unknown, their life and death unknown. After so many years since they became sworn brothers, this was the first time this had happened. Facing powerful enemies that were almost impossible to contend against, such a grim situation, Chu Yang was thoroughly enraged. There had never been a moment when Chu Yang's killing intent was so strong. Mo Tianji no longer said anything and followed behind Chu Yang. The group of 10 people turned into a sharp arrow, piercing straight into the extreme sky. Wuqing City, 1,800 miles north of the extreme sky capital, Wuqing City, surrounded by mountains on 3 sides, was the location of the Saint Emperor's Palace. In the north, there was an unusually wide mountain, as if it wanted to reach the cloud. It was like a huge backrest. And the 2 mountains on the left and right were like 2 armrests. There were no traces of anyone decorating here. The whole terrain, where the 3 mountains overlapped, was like a huge armchair made by heaven, and outside the 2 mountains on the left and right, there was a surging river on each side, like 2 dragons coming out of the water, flowing into the distance. And the Saint Emperor's Palace was located in the seat of this armchair. Chu Yang and the others had just passed through Wuqing City, and when the sky had just turned dark, they saw this majestic armchair in the distance. They also saw the magnificent Saint Emperor's Palace inside the armchair. The terrain here. Mo Tianji instinctively frowned. Why would the Saint Emperor choose such a terrain to build the Saint Emperor's Palace? It's simply predestined to be defeated and destroyed. Is there a problem with the topography and geomancy here? Chu Yang asked. Chu Yang didn't even know a thing or two about feng shui. So, he naturally didn't have the right to speak. However, great trickster Mo was an expert in this field. Something that could make him so surprised must have a huge flaw. No problem at all. Mo Tianji said, it's because there's nothing wrong with it. This was the biggest problem. As I said just now, this place is definitely a treasured land of feng shui. In the entire Heaven Imperial Court, there is absolutely no other place with better terrain than this place. Since it's already the best feng shui location, what's the problem? Chu Yang was puzzled. This is not the best feng shui location. Didn't you notice that I said absolutely feng shui location? I didn't use adjectives like best or best. In most places with feng shui, it was necessary to find a place with the best feng shui layout. But in reality, there was no such thing as a perfect place in the world. Heaven and earth were originally incomplete. Even heaven and earth were incomplete. How could there be a so-called perfect place in the world? Mo Tianji replied. Well, what you mean is that this is an absolutely feng shui location, but it's actually not a good place. Chu Yang asked again. You can't say that. This topography naturally formed a mountain handrail and a pair of dragons out of the water. Everything was created by the heavens. It can be said to be perfect. Mo Tianji said, no one can destroy this kind of natural paradise. That's why it's an absolutely feng shui location. Even a saint can't. Chu Yang asked. No, unless someone can destroy the entire Heaven Imperial Court, the layout of this area won't be damaged. A saint chose to build the Saint Emperor Palace here. It's indeed a good choice. But what if it's not a saint? Mo Tianji said, in fact, it's a good thing for anyone to do something here. Oh, what are you talking about? I don't understand. Chu Yang rarely admitted his ignorance. But what Mo Tianji said just now was indeed a little confusing. There were not many people who could understand it. Well, it should be like this. If a saint dies, it won't affect the feng shui. If he lives, it won't affect the feng shui. Ah! If a saint dies, it won't affect the feng shui? I say, old third Mo, hurry up and say something sensible. If you continue to talk nonsense, I'll really get angry. Mo Tianji stared blankly for a while. Then, he said, it was my mistake to talk about feng shui with an outsider like you. Simply put, this kind of perfect feng shui treasure land is called Heaven's Throne. Humans can never be on par with the heavens. Humans won't benefit from the feng shui here. If that's the case, any excellent feng shui will lose its effect. It's meaningless. It won't protect a saint or anyone here. So, no matter how good the feng shui is, it's meaningless. Do you understand? Oh, so that's what you mean. Then, isn't this feng shui meaningless? Chu Yang said. How can it be meaningless? This kind of feng shui is actually used to protect the heavens. It won't simply protect a person. No one will. Mo Tianji said, so, this excellent feng shui isn't good for humans. At this point, Chu Yang suddenly understood. Actually, the best feng shui sign here is outside of the twin dragons. That's the only place in this place that can be protected by the power of feng shui. It can help oneself, others, and future generations. Mo Tianji sighed, but the saint obviously didn't choose that place. I think, he might not be unaware of the mystery. But it's because he can't afford to lose face. Being told that he has a short life is really a slap in the face. Chu Yang smiled sarcastically. So, even though the saint can see it, he can only choose this place. Mo Tianji also sighed, even if he's as strong as a saint, he can't avoid this. This is the real reason why the saint didn't build his real headquarters here. Mo Tianji sighed softly. Chu Yang nodded and took out a water bag. Everyone, drink some water. The battle is about to begin. Aren't we going to wait a little longer? Night hasn't completely fallen yet. Aren't we going to choose the best time to attack? Tai Butian asked. No need. Chu Yang gave everyone a heavy pill. Then, with a wave of his hand, a black silk scarf appeared in his hand. He slowly covered his face and tied it tightly behind his head. The Calamity Sword also appeared in his hand. Under Chu Yang's control, the light of the Calamity Sword under normal circumstances slowly changed. The whole sword gradually turned black. It was the appearance of Jiyu Duxing's Black Dragon Sword. Chu Yang straightened his back. His entire person suddenly became cold and sharp, like a person who was like a sword. He was dressed in black and held the Black Dragon Sword in his hand. His body exuded a sense of loneliness and loneliness. He was a living example of Jiyu Duxing. He believed that if Jiyu Duxing's original body was here, he would also be surprised. Could it be that he was actually a twin, and there was another twin brother who had the same fate, experience, and strength as himself? Among the brothers, Chu Yang had spent the longest time with Jiyu Duxing. Not only did he not feel pressured to imitate Jiyu Duxing, but he could also imitate Jiyu Duxing at every difficulty. Chu Yang could even completely imitate his sword techniques, including the Chaotic Heavens sword technique. During the battle with Mo Yuntian, Jiyu Duxing had explained this sword technique to Chu Yang in detail. At that time, neither of them had thought that this sword intent would appear in the Holy Emperor Palace in such a way. Tianji set up the formation, Le seal the door. Bu Tian and Chen fill in the gaps. Chu Yang rose and turned into a sword light that shot out. Today, the Holy Emperor Palace will not be spared. A burst of murderous aura suddenly exploded and engulfed the entire Holy Emperor Palace. The entire crowd overflowed with a strong, clear, and vengeful intent. A black dragon shook its head and wagged its tail, madly dashing forward in an overbearing manner. Luo Kedi, Ji Mo, Sai Niang, Rui Butong, Mo Qingwu and the rest followed closely behind. 5 rainbows shot out in all directions behind Chu Yang. At this moment, they were only a few thousand feet away from the Holy Emperor Palace. In the night that had just descended, one could clearly see the extremely dazzling sword light in mid-air. Also, the undisguised murderous aura that soared to the heavens rushed towards them like raging wave. Almost at the same time, all the practitioners in the Holy Emperor's Palace felt their hair stand on end. Who dares to be so presumptuous here? Stop! Following a loud roar, the entire Holy Emperor Palace trembled. Then, another roar sounded, enemy attack. The voice was sharp and rushed straight into the night sky, like a thunderbolt in the clear sky, exploding loudly. The vigilance of the Holy Emperor Palace was indeed extraordinary. Their reaction could be said to be extremely fast. The sword light had just been seen here, and they had already reacted immediately. The next moment, beams of light shot out from the Holy Emperor Palace. These were streaks of light. Each rainbow represented an expert who was at least at the peak of the high-level saint level. 20 to 30 experts at the peak rushed out at the same time, one after another. This kind of momentum, this kind of lineup, could really be said to be earth-shattering. Countless majestic auras brazenly rushed towards Chu Yang. However, Chu Yang completely ignored this and sneered, "Since you dared to destroy my heavenly armament pavilion, you will have to bear my revenge. Even if it's the most sacred place in the Heaven Imperial Court, Holy Emperor Palace, tonight, you will have to bear the fate of vanishing into thin air." The black dragon transformed and the sword light flashed, mixed with a sense of loneliness and desolation that pervaded the world. Chu Yang, together with his sword, rushed towards the gate of the Holy Emperor Palace from the front. White light flashed on the gate, and the restriction here was instantly activated. Chapter 2566. This white light was a restriction personally laid down by the saint. One could imagine how powerful it was. The pure and holy white light immediately enveloped the entire gate. In an instant, it had reached its strongest level. But on top of the city wall, someone still exclaimed, "Heavenly Armament Pavilion. Black Dragon. Misty Heaven Sword Technique. This is the Solitary Emperor." In this world, only the Solitary Emperor would have this kind of lonely and desolate aura when he fully unleashed his sword aura. This point was no longer a secret. Everyone watched as this sword light that was infinitely close to black rushed over at an astonishing speed like a falling meteor. It rushed towards the defensive white light that was personally laid down by the saint. Everyone's palms were sweating profusely. Although everyone had confidence in the defense that was personally laid down by the saint, they were all frightened by the Solitary Emperor's heaven-shaking might. Would the Solitary Emperor, who had come for revenge, be able to break through this strongest defense? The answer was revealed almost at the instant of contact. The sword light rushed into the white light like a red-hot sharp knife, unreservedly stabbing into a pool of solidified butter. That white light only flickered for a moment before it exploded with a loud bang. Facing the decisive attack of the Solitary Emperor, even the defense that was personally laid down by the saint couldn't withstand a single blow. The entire city gate was completely overturned by the sudden explosion of the white light. Countless people screamed miserably as they were turned into flying people. Blood flowed in the air as their bodies involuntarily flew far away. Under the sword of the Solitary Emperor, the defense of the saint couldn't even delay the slightest bit of time. What did this result mean? Everyone's eyebrows twitched. Then, they saw that after the grand sword light broke through the defense of the white light, it didn't slow down at all. It didn't even need to catch its breath as it rushed straight into the Saint Emperor's palace. Wherever the sword energy and the sword light passed, there was blood everywhere like a waterfall. In just a few thousand feet, there were already no less than 500 corpses lying on the ground. Long rainbows flickered. No less than 10 figures landed in front of Chu Yang in an instant. One of them said in a deep voice, "Solitary Emperor?" Chu Yang said coldly, "Even if you know me, I won't show you any mercy." Ha ha ha. Everyone on the other side burst into laughter. The legendary lone traveler Great Emperor is a man of few words. Seeing you in person today is better than seeing you in person. However, even if you are the lone traveler Great Emperor, you are courting death by coming here today. Whether you're courting death or not, we'll know after we fight. Chu Yang shouted. As he soared into the air, an indescribable aura of loneliness instantly spread through the air and engulfed the entire area. It was as if he was the only one left in this world. A sword across the sky to the peak. With a sweep of the sword light, it flew out in the shape of a fan. It actually faced dozens of tyrannical opponents head-on. Without exception, all of them enveloped him. Everyone on the Holy Emperor Palace's side felt a bleak and lonely killing intent at that moment. In the next moment, all of them reacted at the same time, and their reactions were very similar. They were furious. Gu Duxing, who do you think you are? You actually want to challenge all of us here by yourself? Who do you think you are, the Holy Emperor His Majesty? Kill him. Someone shouted. Everyone on the Holy Emperor Palace's side attacked at the same time. Everyone used their own techniques, and countless sharp techniques were all directed at Gu Duxing. The momentum was indescribable. At this moment, Mo Qingwu, Ji Mo, Luo Kedi and sacrificial maiden Rui Butong rushed in at the same time. They didn't speak and chose their opponents. They fought fiercely. Life and death, victory and defeat, vanish in a flash. Chu Yang recited softly. This was originally Jiyu Duxing's sword technique, but Chu Yang used it at this moment and it was equally smooth. In his previous life, he understood the taste of loneliness far better than Jiyu Duxing. He had this state of mind. He understood this state of mind. This sword technique was largely perfected by Chu Yang. He turned around. Countless sword chi seemed to be attacking in all directions without any pattern. However, two people on the opposite side screamed in pain without any warning. They were already injured by the sword chi. The skin that was cut by the sword energy couldn't stop bleeding at all. It could only continue to flow. No divine technique or secret technique could be used. What no one noticed was that their life force, soul strength, and pure cultivation strength had also been reduced by a small half after this sword strike. This wasn't the effect of the Sword of Solitude, but the Calamity Sword secretly swallowing. The effect of the Sword of Solitude in Chu Yang's hands, coupled with the Calamity Sword, was at least several times better than when Jiyu Duxing used it himself. Where can I find a soulmate in the world? Pointing his sword forward, he attacked 300 times in an instant. The sword went in and out of the chest of the Saint Expert at the front dozens of times. Chu Yang didn't hesitate. He kicked the corpse in front of him and stabbed the sword into the heart of another person. With a swing, the two parts of the corpse turned into hidden weapons and flew out. When you want to look back, you've already forgotten your feelings. Chu Yang jumped up and spun slowly in the air. Countless deadly sword energy fell in a fan shape. Within a radius of 3,000 feet around Chu Yang, all the people with lower cultivations let out a blood-curdling scream. Then, there was no more sound. The remaining 30 or so experts were all forced back by his sword attack for close to 100 steps. In the process, 7 or 8 people died because they couldn't bear it anymore. What sword technique is this? How can it have such terrifying power? So far, Chu Yang had only used 3 moves. But, a feeling of fear had arisen in everyone's heart, and they couldn't suppress it. According to the legends, although the solitary emperor was powerful and sharp, it didn't seem to be to this extent, right? This was simply terrifying, a nightmare. Could it be that he broke through after being suppressed by the Saint Emperor? But this was the Saint Emperor Palace, the sacred place of the Heaven Imperial Court. How could they let him behave so atrociously here? Everyone tried to suppress the fear in their hearts. With a roar, they surrounded Chu Yang to eliminate the nightmare. Chu Yang quietly landed on the ground. His eyes behind the black mask were cold and emotionless. No matter how many people he faced, he would never face more than 3 people head-on. As long as someone could get behind him or attack from above, Mo Qingwu and the rest would instantly join forces and force that person to retreat or join forces to kill him in the shortest time possible. They had to ensure Chu Yang's safety. Although Chu Yang didn't need such protection, the legendary solitary emperor might not. To make these people believe that this was indeed the solitary emperor, some necessary concealment was still necessary. For the next period of time, the battle fell into a stalemate. Although Chu Yang and the rest's attacks were fierce and sharp, the strength displayed by the other party was definitely not weak. After the initial irresistible force, they gradually fell into a stalemate. No one could do anything to the other. Of course, this stalemate was deliberately created by Chu Yang. On one hand, Chu Yang was secretly gathering his energy, preparing for a sure-kill attack. On the other hand, he was waiting for news from Mo Tianji. This time, Chu Yang didn't intend to let any of the Saint Monarch's direct experts walk out alive. The Saint Monarch's crazy revenge had also triggered Chu Yang's violent nature. As long as Mo Tianji and Chu Le completed the outer blockade, Chu Yang was prepared to use the Tribulation Sword technique with all his might and start a massacre. Unexpectedly, at this moment, a cold yet seductive voice resounded, "Stop." On the opposite side, more than 10 experts, who had been suppressed by Chu Yang to the point that they couldn't breathe, leaped out of the battle circle at the same time. Chu Yang held his sword and looked towards the direction of the voice. He saw a woman in white standing gracefully on the steps. A pair of cold eyes were looking at him. However, for some reason, this pair of cold eyes gave off an indescribably beautiful feeling. It was as if the endless scenery of the vast starry sky and the boundless sea was revealed from this pair of cold eyes. This was a perfect face. No one would be able to find a single flaw on his face. She had an extremely exquisite face with an impeccable shape, perfect phoenix eyes, and slender eyebrows. Every single one of them was fresh and refined. Her skin was white and tender, her nose was tall and straight, and her lips were red and moist. This was a perfect woman without any flaws. Without any introduction, Chu Yang instantly knew who this woman was. In this world, only this woman could make people think of her name when they saw her face. In the past, she was the pearl of the Xue clan, the world's #1 beauty, the younger sister of Donghuang Xue Leihan, Xue Xian. This white-clothed woman who seemed to have appeared out of thin air just stood there, and there was not the slightest bit of disharmony in the entire bloody battlefield. This was because the moment this white-clothed woman appeared, the entire battlefield seemed to be filled with the fragrance of flowers and the chirping of birds. It was an endless feeling of contentment, and both sides of the battlefield actually quieted down. The passage of countless years and the baptism of time could not diminish her beauty in the slightest. On the contrary, because of the passage of time, it added a hint of maturity to her peerless beauty, and it added a boundless magnificence to her indescribably beautiful appearance. Cold and peerless, unattainable, immortal and otherworldly. Even Mo Qingwu and Mo Lei couldn't help but feel envious when they looked at this woman. This was the limit that a woman could reach. Time never aged her face, her youth was eternal. The vicissitudes of life didn't hinder her, only her magnificence was always with her. This was undoubtedly the ultimate goal of every woman. Even Mo Qingwu and Mo Lei, who were at the peak of martial arts, couldn't avoid it. Chu Yang stood with his sword held horizontally, his eyes coldly staring at the woman in front of him. He knew the identity of this woman very well. When he had first seen her beauty, he had been in a trance for a moment. But he had sobered up in an instant. This was because Chu Yang knew that this woman before his eyes was deranged and devoid of conscience. Chapter 2567. This pharaoh-like woman in front of him was willing to sacrifice her own father, slaughter her own brothers, and use her entire clan as a tool for her own love and for her husband's ambition, Xue Xian. This extremely elegant and refined name shouldn't belong to this woman. Her actions would only tarnish this name. Chu Yang stared at this woman. There was no longer any desire for beauty in his heart, but he didn't know what exactly he was feeling. It could be hatred, disdain, or disdain. At this moment, Chu Yang had already made up his mind. This woman must be killed. Even if Xue Leihan was here, he wouldn't be able to stop him from waving his sword. As for whether he could kill her or not, that was secondary. Even if Xue Xian's real body was here, Chu Yang would still kill her. Moreover, Chu Yang already knew from Dong Wushang that the Xue Xian here was actually just a doppelganger, just like the doppelganger of the sage at the 10,000 Saints True Spirit base. As he thought of this, Chu Yang couldn't help but sigh at how miraculous this world was. Not long ago, he had just killed a clone of Master Yun, and now he was seeing his wife's clone here. Furthermore, she was about to be killed by him. This must be the renowned solitary emperor, Jiyu Duxing, right? Xue Xian carefully sized up Chu Yang from head to toe. From his figure to his sword, she could feel his aura. As she looked at him, her eyes were bright and kind. She naturally stood out from the crowd. Yes. Chu Yang said coldly, "You must be the saint's first wife, the current saint empress, right?" Xue Xian nodded slightly. She said, "Yes, I am. However, I didn't know that the solitary emperor had already revealed his identity. Why did you cover your face? Are you trying to deceive yourself?" Intense hatred shot out from Chu Yang's eyes. He said coldly, "All of this was bestowed upon me by the saint. A person's face is bestowed by their parents and bestowed by the heavens. If there wasn't any special reason, who would deliberately deceive others?" Xue Xian shook her head and smiled bitterly. So the solitary emperor's face, is actually injured. However, I don't know if it's serious or not. I have top-notch healing medicine here. It might be able to treat it. Chu Yang sneered, I don't dare to take your medicine. Is there anything that the solitary emperor doesn't dare to do? Even the heavenly watchtower holy grounds and the holy emperor palace were not in the solitary traveler great emperor's eyes. There's nothing in this world that the solitary emperor doesn't dare to do. A mere pill is the heart of my fists, yet the solitary emperor is willing to throw it away like a worn-out shoe? Xuezian squinted her eyes. He chuckled. All around, many people from Holy Emperor Palace stared with their eyes wide open. I didn't expect you to see through my thoughts, Chu Yang replied. Once these words came out, the entire audience went silent. What is Jiu Du Xing talking about? She could tell what was on his mind. It seemed that the Divine Empress had just said, this concubine's fists have the heart, yet the great emperor discards her like a worn-out shoe? Was Jiu Du Xing referring to this sentence? Wasn't this too presumptuous? How dare he say that? He actually dared to tease the Divine Empress. Unexpectedly, Xuezian was still able to maintain her composure. She smiled lightly and said, I wonder if the solitary traveler Grand Emperor has some misunderstandings towards me. Or perhaps, he is taking his anger out on me because of my relationship with esteemed Lord. Just now, I was too presumptuous. Our relationship is shallow, so I spoke too deeply. Indeed, it's my fault. Xuezian was indeed worthy of being the Divine Empress of this generation. She was the only person who shared a pillow with esteemed Lord Cloud. Even after being ridiculed by Chu Yang on the spot, she was still able to maintain her composure. Not only was she able to maintain her composure, she could even raise her hand and repeat it. With just a few sentences, she had already accused the solitary traveler Grand Emperor of being narrow-minded, taking his anger out on others, and so on. I said that you saw through my thoughts. What I meant was, your Holy Emperor Palace is really not in my eyes. In this world, there is nothing that I don't dare to do. Chu Yang sneered, Your Majesty Divine Empress, you think too highly of yourself. These words did not leave any face for Xuezian. Everyone's expression changed. Xuezian's expression changed slightly. She chuckled and said, But you still don't dare to eat my healing medicine. Why is that? Chu Yang's eyes were filled with mockery. He said coldly, I don't dare to because my surname is not Xue. That's all. Then, he laughed mockingly and said, Even Xuezian doesn't dare to eat your medicine. How would I dare to? Xuezian frowned. Her bright and beautiful eyes suddenly turned cold. She said softly, Solitary traveler Grand Emperor, if you don't speak clearly, you won't be able to discern the truth. What do you mean by this? Please elaborate. Chu Yang smiled faintly. Did I not make it clear enough? Then let me make it even clearer. Where is the world's #1 financial magnate now? In the sky? Or underground? Xuezian's expression was as cold as ice. She looked at him quietly. In the past, for the sake of his daughter's happiness, the great father who didn't hesitate to spend all his wealth. Who killed him in the end? In the past, the Xue clan had many heroes and brothers. Where are they now? In the sky? Or underground? But you, Xuezian, are now in a high position and you command the world. Chu Yang said coldly, even a wolf has a heart. But where is your heart? Xuezian's face turned cold as she said, Take down this arrogant man. She originally wanted to use her talent to negotiate with this solitary traveler Grand Emperor. Then, it would be best if she could subdue him without fighting. The most important achievement of the charm of all living beings that she cultivated was precisely this function. In the past, countless famous experts and experts of the current age had unknowingly fallen for this trick. They had unknowingly been manipulated by her. As long as this Jiu Du Xing's fighting spirit was slightly weakened, it would be as easy as blowing off dust to deal with him. She could even manipulate Jiu Du Xing to kill all of his companions and then wake him up. This was the most convenient thing that Xuezian could do. It was also the thing that she was most proud of. In the past, she had used this method to defeat powerful enemies countless times. If at that time, Jiyu Du-shing saw his companions and brothers being killed by her. How could he endure it? Perhaps, Shuexian or the experts of the Holy Emperor Palace would not have to do it personally. Jiyu Du-shing would have already committed suicide to atone for his crimes. Shuexian had already used this trick too many times. She was not satisfied with it every time. The charm of all living beings was to play with all living beings in the palm of one's hand. Life and death in one's mind. But now, these few words of Jiyu Du-shing had directly touched upon the biggest taboo in her heart. It was as if her heart had been fiercely scalded by a red-hot iron. This caused Shuexian's mind, which had been as calm as an ancient well for millions of years, to become turbulent and difficult to calm down. In an instant, she flew into a rage. She could no longer maintain her elegant demeanor and directly issued a battle order. With this order, the people of the Holy Emperor Palace rushed up as if they did not care about their lives. Chu Yang and the others suddenly felt a pressure that was several times stronger than before. It was as if Shuexian was standing here. To the people of the Holy Emperor Palace. It was already an excellent stimulant. There was no need to say anything more. It was already enough. How can this be? Probably only a few newbies would do such a childish act of desperately trying to show off in front of a beauty. But, these people are all experts. If they did not have extraordinary willpower, how could they have such extraordinary strength? Why would they have such a strange mentality? Chu Yang felt strange as he fought. But he did not know how powerful Shuexian's charm of all living beings was. Not to mention those who had been with her for a long time, or those who had seen her frequently for a long time. Even those who met her for the first time could not help but be awed by her radiance. This was because those who could be charmed by Shuexian were definitely experts among expert. Ordinary people did not have such qualifications. These people had stayed in the Holy Emperor Palace for a long time. Naturally, they had seen Shuexian many times. And every time they saw her, their impression of her would deepen, and they would yearn for her even more. Over the years, they had already worshipped Shuexian as the supreme goddess in their heart. Now that the goddess had given the order, of course, everyone fought bravely and fought to be the first. Because of this, ever since Shuexian and Cloud Master entered the Holy Emperor Palace, there had never been any betrayals in the palace. Shuexian could be said to have taken great credit for this. This had nothing to do with sex, but she had made herself into an immortal. That kind of cold immortal aura made everyone who saw her feel ashamed of their inferiority, but also fanatically supported her. What was even more fortunate was that the real Jiyu Du-shing was now Chu Yang. Chu Yang cultivated the heaven-splitting divine technique, which was above all the other techniques in the heaven-splitting imperial court. He had also comprehended the true attainments of Tao, which was why he was not bewitched by Shuexian's charm of all living beings. If the real Jiyu Du-shing was here, based on his cultivation, he might not be able to resist the power of charm of all living beings. As long as there was a little bit of insufficient resistance, he would be defeated in an instant. Clang, clang, clang. A huge hand suddenly formed in the sky and covered the whole battlefield of the Holy Emperor Palace without any warning. It slammed down fiercely with the force of a mountain. Chu Yang let out a long roar. Using the posture of the heaven-splitting sword technique, he merged the surging sword energy of what harm is there in slaughtering the entire world and suddenly unleashed it. A faintly discernible sword energy was spat out along with the momentum. Kai, kai, kai. Numerous small transparent holes suddenly appeared in the huge hand that covered the sky above. Then, with a boom, it completely exploded. Following the collapse of the huge hand, the buildings around the Holy Emperor Palace also collapsed. The initiators of the huge hand, the 8 saints who attacked together, spat out blood at the same time and fell to the ground in exhaustion. Chu Yang's calamity sword circled around. The sword tip vibrated continuously 8 times at an extremely fast frequency. The heads of the 8 people almost flew up at the same time, and their life essence was also devoured by the calamity sword. A clear and melodious whistle suddenly sounded, and a dreamy red color suddenly appeared in the sky. Heavenly dance. I'm very disappointed today. Very angry. I want to cry. Fuck, I started to lose weight on the 28th of this month. Until today, when I started to lose weight, I was 75 pounds. After going to the toilet today, I weighed myself. I'm 50 pounds now. Chapter 2568. In other words, this guy was the weakest link in this group of enemies, the kind that needed to be protected. That was why he didn't leave this place. Although he had the protection of the solitary Great Emperor, the injuries on this guy's body were still riddled with wounds. They believed that as long as they put in a little more effort, they would be able to kill him. As long as this person was killed, there would be a gap in the enemy's formation, and they would be able to secure victory. Driven by this thought, more and more people gathered around. Soon, more and more people gathered around them. Rui Butong shouted, "Your Majesty, I can't protect you anymore." With a swoosh, he ran away. "You're protecting Your Majesty? What kind of joke is this? It's obviously Your Majesty who is protecting you. And now that the situation is critical, as a guard, you actually ran away without a care. How can people be so shameless? This is really a little too shameless. However, it's better for you to split up. It'll be easier for us to defeat you one by one. Dealing with this guy alone is much less dangerous than dealing with the solitary Great Emperor together." Therefore, more than 40 people flew up and chased after him. On the other side, Luo Kedi and the sacrificial maiden wielded the Wolf-Fang sword and the Wolf-Fang sword respectively. The couple howled like wolves, one howling and the other howling. Although there were only the two of them, they had the power of 10,000 wolves howling at the same time, even though they were on a battlefield of life and death that was constantly changing, and they were here for revenge. Chu Yang and the rest still felt a little scared. They really didn't expect that Luo Kedi, who had never found a wife, would actually find such a perfect match here. Continuous howls of wolves could be heard. One by one, experts fell down just like that, never to be seen again. Shuexianer's eyes were fixed on Chu Yang, who was engaged in a frenzy of killing. At the same time, she was also paying attention to Mo Qingwu, who was fighting alongside Chu Yang. The two of them were sometimes together and sometimes apart. Their cooperation was flawless, like a perfect pair of pearls and jade. Shuexianer's split body was a little hesitant. Her rationality told her that the most dangerous enemy now was this solitary Great Emperor who was on a killing spree and needed to be eliminated immediately. But her emotions urged her to move step by step towards Mo Qingwu. The jealousy in her heart had already made her close to madness. No matter what, she would not allow another woman who was more beautiful than her to exist in this world. As long as such a woman exists, she must be eradicated. The former one was already dead. This one had to die too. Once a woman's jealousy rose, her actions would no longer be reasonable, and she would become unreasonable. Under this kind of mentality, all of the reasons, right and wrong, and reasons were not important. They were meaningless. As a result, amidst the sounds of fighting that were as loud as the mountains, Shuexianer's white clothes flashed. He leaped up and attacked from the sky. In an instant, countless rays of white light fell down like an inescapable net. At the moment of the descent, sharp knives with barbs appeared out of thin air on the dense net that was like an inescapable net. The blade was glowing with a blue light. A loud boom resounded in the empty sky. This sudden change caused the power of the attack to increase even more. It even blocked off all the paths that Mo Qingwu could take to advance or retreat. This kind of attack was obviously meant to kill Mo Qingwu in one blow. And even if she was lucky enough not to die, as long as these barbed knives came close to her body, her beautiful face would be destroyed in an instant. Her snow-white jade-like skin could no longer recover. No one knew that Shuexianer had added an extremely powerful poison on top of this inescapable net divine technique. Similarly, no one knew that Shuexianer, who looked as pure and holy as a snow fairy, was not only cruel and merciless, she was also a venomous woman. An expert in the way of poison. No matter how beautiful a woman was, once she was poisoned, there would be no cure for her life. And this kind of poison was only effective against women. It was useless against men. Mo Qingwu was just about to escape when she suddenly felt that the air around her had become extremely sticky. Although she was still confident that she could break free, She would not be able to deal with the attacks of more than 10 opponents at the same time. And even if she could deal with the people in front of her, how could she deal with the net above her head? 3 dangers, 3 attacks from 3 sides. How should she choose? Mo Qingwu's face turned cold. Suddenly, she let out a soft roar and activated her peak cultivation. She exploded with a powerful force and broke free from the restraint of the external force. The Qingwu Dream Saber in her hand shone with endless light. She slashed hundreds of times consecutively at the speed of lightning, forcing back more than 10 enemies in front and behind her. 2 of them had blood spurting out from their bodies. After pushing back the enemies in an instant, the Qingwu Dream Saber shone again and was about to slash at the net that was about to reach her. The saber aura had already formed. It shone with a faint green light. The power of this saber was enough to make gods and demons retreat and silence the fairies. Shuexian Er's white-clothed figure flashed over with an extremely cruel smile on her face. An enormous external force appeared once again, instantly sealing off the surrounding environment. Her meticulous plan was all for this moment. This little girl actually wants to use the saber aura to break the inescapable net divine technique. How can that be? Just be obedient and be disfigured. There is no woman more beautiful than me in this world. There isn't one in the past, now, and in the future. Yo, little sister, you look so beautiful. What a beauty. Shuexian Er's voice was gentle and soft. Come, let me take a closer look. TSK, this little face is really, really beautiful. It's just that this face can only be a memory. Then, she waved her white hands, and 2 white ribbons flew out like long dragons. They forcibly entangled the dreaming of a gentle dance saber. The invincible and indestructible saber aura got suppressed, and couldn't display its might for a while. Seeing that the big net was about to fall. At this moment, a white figure flashed through the air and a clear voice laughed. Such a good fishing net is better used to catch fish. How can you throw it at people's heads? You are not human. A slender hand grabbed onto the tip of one of the hidden sabers on the inescapable net. Then, using the tip of the saber, the net was lifted into the air, and with a wave of her hand, the net was turned into a rod-like object. Then, she smashed it down toward Shuexian Er with the momentum of the rod-like object. Shuexian Er retreated in shock. This net was called the Tears of Beauties. Although it was not very lethal, it was a nightmare to any woman. Beauties have tears, and tears can change their beauty. As long as a woman came into contact with this net, she would be poisoned immediately. Furthermore, even Shuexian Er did not have the antidote. If she was careless, she would not be able to recover for the rest of her life. There were restrictions placed on it by the Saint Monarch and her own cultivation. It looked ordinary, but it was definitely not. Every time she used it, there would be a space lock and poison spreading in all directions. But this person was able to grab it so easily and was not affected by it at all. Shuexian Er looked over and saw a young girl in white. She was slim and elegant like a white lotus out of the water. She looked smart and was looking at her mockingly. Shuexian Er was holding the net in her hand like a dead fish. She did not care about it at all. When Shuexian Er saw this, she was truly shocked. She had only caught a glimpse of the girl and did not observe her closely. At first, she thought that the girl was wearing some kind of mystical glove on her hand that could ward off poison. But now that she took a closer look, the girl clearly did not wear any glove on her hand. She was just holding the tip of the knife with 2 fingers. But why was she not poisoned? This young girl was, of course, Chula Er. She held Shuexian Er's Tears of Beauties and said mockingly, "A Saint Empress is actually using such a broken net as a weapon. Isn't it too embarrassing?" She then pouted and said, "Here, I'll return this to you. But please don't take it out and embarrass yourself in the future. Even I feel embarrassed for you." She then threw the vicious net back to Shuexian Er. How could Chula Er throw this harmful weapon back to Shuexian Er so casually? Was she really that stupid? Shuexian Er smiled sweetly and said, "Even a Saint Empress has to share the joys and sorrows of the people. What good things can there be in this world?" She then took the net back. It was not easy to make this inescapable net. Since she had the chance to get it back, how could she miss it? But Xuexian was more concerned about what was wrong with it. She had to find out. Why was she not poisoned? Furthermore, even though the net looked like a net, its ingenuity was endless. Even the threads that formed the net were treasures that were hard to find in this world. How could she throw it away so casually? Was it because this girl was from a side sect and did not recognize such a treasure? Or was it because of her high status that she did not care about this item? However, the moment Xuexian held the net in her hands, she suddenly screamed and threw the net away. There was a third possibility. She was using this mechanism to fight. But Xuexian realized it too late. At this moment, Xuexian's jade-like hands that were as white as snow had already turned green. Following which, it turned purple. Then, a faint purplish-black line could be seen climbing up her wrist. The speed at which it spread was actually visible to the naked eye. Xuexian's face turned pale. She hurriedly used her cultivation as a peak saint to stop the poison from spreading. But to her horror, she realized that this method was useless. The black and purple line was not affected by her spiritual energy at all. From beginning to end, it slowly rose up in an orderly manner. In the blink of an eye, it had reached her forearm. Her entire forearm had turned green. But fortunately, the line stopped moving when it reached her forearm. It was as if it was restrained by something. Chapter 2569. Although the cultivation of the four girls was not weak, their actual cultivation was much weaker than Jimo's. Especially when Jimo pretended to be weak, they were all killed instantly when he suddenly burst out. Perhaps they did not expect that the perverted hooligan whom they were suppressing just now would suddenly burst out with such powerful energy. Was this a joke? However, this joke could only be explained in the netherworld. Across the entire Holy Emperor Palace, the sounds of fighting had already become fragmented, and there was not much left. There were tens of thousands of experts here, and most of them had turned into dust. Xuexian looked at the corpses around her and sighed. If we did not rush to the other worlds and divert more than half of the experts from Holy Emperor Palace, how could you break into Holy Emperor Palace so easily? An elegant voice said, if Holy Emperor Palace did not send so many experts to hurt my brother, we would not have thought of destroying Holy Emperor Palace this time. There is a cause and effect. You did the first, we did the 15th. That's all. Following the voice, a person walked in slowly from the direction of the gate. The person was dressed in white, clean and elegant. He walked calmly, and a purple jade flute shone in his hand. As this person walked over, it was as if the entire situation was under his control. Mo Tianji. When Chula appeared, it meant that the two of them had completely sealed off the outside of Holy Emperor Palace. And Mo Tianji's appearance was tantamount to announcing another thing. From now on, this Holy Emperor Palace. It could already be equated to death. Unless they had Mo Tianji's permission, they wouldn't be able to enter. No one could come out. All the paths here were controlled by Mo Tianji. When Mo Tianji came in, he immediately said, seize the time and kill everyone who needs to be killed. Tonight, no one will be left alive in Holy Emperor Palace. Heaven Fault Holy Land will be Heaven Fault Holy Land. As soon as he heard this, the guards of Holy Emperor Palace, who still had some fighting spirit, instantly collapsed. They watched as the number of people on their side decreased, and the living people turned into corpses one by one. Some even died without a complete corpse. From tens of thousands of people to less than 1,000 now. No matter how they struggled and fought, only death awaited them. How could they not be afraid? Now, in an absolute disadvantage. Seeing that the saints, who were usually high and mighty, were also being forced into a corner and were about to be defeated and die, who would be willing to stay here and wait for death? Once their fighting spirit crumbled, it was unknown who took the lead to shout, but the thousands of people immediately scattered like birds and beasts, fleeing in all directions. Where there is life, there is hope. Besides, I'm going to deliver a message to His Majesty the Sage Monarch. It can't be considered an escape, it's just a strategic diversion. For the Holy Emperor Palace, He would leave behind a spark and hope. Leaving the future behind. With such thoughts in mind, everyone was instantly cleansed. Chu Yang, Mo Tianji, Chu Le, and the others all revealed cruel smiles as they watched these people escape. Sure enough, those people had only charged out a few thousand feet when they seemed to have bumped into an invisible barrier, and they were unable to take another step forward. This was the power of the array formation. With Mo Tianji's unique means and the unique geographical conditions of this place, setting up such a ceiling formation was simply a piece of cake for him. He could achieve twice the result with half the effort. In the next moment, the people who hit the barrier all screamed in pain. The poison that Chu Le had set up immediately took effect the moment it came into contact with them. One by one, they rolled, screamed, begged, and cursed. However, not long after, these people fell to the ground with their bodies convulsing. There was no more sound. Shuexianer's face was still vaguely filled with anger when she saw everyone suddenly running away. However, as she watched until now and saw everyone dying in such a bizarre manner, Shuexianer's face finally changed and fear began to grow in her heart. She turned her head and looked at Chu Le with some fear. She asked word by word, "You did this?" Chu Le smiled sweetly. "I'm an expert in using poison. Please enlighten me." Shuexianer's heart really fell into an ice cave at this moment. At least she knew that it was impossible for her to use poison to kill so many people at once in such a spacious place. This was no longer a matter of pure means. Poison, means, timing, dosage, all the conditions had to be calculated perfectly, and it also required a lot of experience in using poison. Only by combining all of the above could it be possible to accomplish this. Yes, only then could it be possible. And this girl did it beautifully in front of the Divine Empress, in front of Shuexianer. For the first time, Shuexianer was touched by her own safety. "You're indeed stronger than me." Shuexianer seemed indifferent to the tragic deaths of her subordinates. She smiled faintly and said, "Heroes come from young." "I'm impressed." Chu Le said, "Stronger than you? I thought you were just flattered by your subordinates and didn't know your place. It turns out that you're really ignorant. Oh right, you haven't told me where you found the tear of heaven's pride." Shuexianer's clone frowned and smiled. "I can tell you the truth, and I can even give you a batch. However, the condition is that you let me go." Chu Le nodded. "Sure, as long as you're telling the truth." Shuexianer didn't fall for it. She said, "What about my poison?" Chu Le said, "As long as you do what you say, I'll cure you of the poison. You can rest assured about this." Shuexianer heaved a sigh of relief. She said, "But how can I trust you? I can tell you where the tear of heaven's pride is produced, and I can also give you the tear of heaven's pride that I have. However, how can you gain my trust?" Chu Le smiled. "There's no good way for this. You can only gamble now that I'm trustworthy. Because you don't have any other choice. If I go back on my words, you can only die. If I keep my word, you can live. I wonder if the heavens will look after you." Shuexianer was speechless. She's such a hoodlum. She actually met the legendary female hoodlum today. She's such a pretty and pitiful young lady. She's actually such a hoodlum. Chu Le reminded him kindly, "That's right, I'm deliberately controlling the poison in your body now. It won't continue to spread. If you don't make a decision soon, I won't be able to control it for long given my low cultivation level. Your life is now in your own hands. You know what I'm talking about, right? Poison expert." As if confirming Chu Le's words, the purplish-black poison lines on Shuexianer's arm suddenly moved at this moment. At this moment, it actually moved at the right time. In an instant, it spread up a distance of no less than half a foot. Her entire arm was originally as white as snow. But now, it was extremely swollen. It was unbearable to look at. In fact, it was even emitting a faint stench that made one want to vomit. On the other side, another scream was heard. Another peak-level saint slowly shriveled under Chu Yang's sword. There was a look of despair in his eyes. Along with this scream, on the other side, almost at the same time, another scream was heard, followed by a muffled groan. Luo Kedi groaned. He staggered backward and kept vomiting blood. However, the peak-level saint opposite him had already been split into two halves from his shoulder to his lower abdomen. He died with his eyes wide open. Then, without waiting for the others to react, Rui Butong opened his mouth. With a boom, a ball of nirvana flame enveloped that corpse and burned it fiercely. All the remaining primordial spirit and soul consciousness of that person were completely burned away by this ball of nirvana flame. Ji Mo, Lady Priest, Mo Qingwu and the others also successively succeeded. There were not many people left on the Holy Emperor Palace's side. At this point, Chu Yang no longer concealed himself. He controlled the Calamity Sword and used all his strength to attack the remaining 5 experts. His current cultivation was already comparable to Donghuang Shui Lei Han. If he used the Calamity Sword and used all his strength, he believed that even Shui Lei Han might not be Chu Yang's match. Although the 5 people opposite him were also peak-level experts, they were still some distance away from Zui Wuqing and the others. They were even further away from Donghuang. Chu Yang had unleashed his full strength at this time. So, these 5 experts had been completely killed in the blink of an eye. After the Calamity Sword devoured the soul energy, it let out a cheerful sword cry and rushed into Chu Yang's body. This battle was undoubtedly a great supplement for the Calamity Sword. However, such a long battle also consumed a lot of energy. It needed to rest temporarily to consolidate its foundation and digest what it had gained. Seeing that she was the only one left in an extremely short period of time, Shuexiana finally panicked. She said decisively, "I believe you. I will tell you where the heaven's proud tear is." Although she would never be so naive to believe her enemy, she could only choose to believe at this time. Because she had no other choice. There wasn't a single other path. This was the last life-saving straw. No matter what, she had to try. It was only at this moment that she completely believed that in this world, there was actually someone who could use poison as if it was her own arm. Even if the poison had already entered someone else's body, she could still control it. Furthermore, she could control it so meticulously and freely. She believed that even the Sky Poison sect, which was famous for its time millions of years ago, had not heard of such a method. However, she had personally encountered it today. As a person who was good at using poison, Shuexiana's doppelganger knew how terrifying such a person was. Although the young girl in front of her looked pure and innocent, and even a little naive, in the eyes of Shuexiana's doppelganger, she was no different from the incarnation of a devil. Say it. Chu Lo smiled very innocently. However, when Shuexiana saw her smile, she shuddered and said, "I don't have the finished product with me. Actually, that medicinal herb is behind this mountain, under the valley. When I found it, I didn't know that this medicinal herb was the heaven's proud tear. Until now, I still call it Beauty's tear." Chapter 2570. Tears of Beauties. Chuloa suddenly frowned in disgust. "You only use this kind of poison on women? Beauties?" Shuexiana lowered her head and nodded. Chuloa was indeed an expert in using poisons. She immediately understood what Chuloa was trying to do. "You're also a woman. Don't you know how vicious this kind of poison is to women?" Chuloa couldn't understand at all. She looked at the woman in front of her angrily. "Why did you do this? She's just a clone." Chu Yang walked over slowly and said indifferently, "This should have been ordered by her original body." Clone. Shuexiana's clone trembled. Her biggest secret was actually exposed by this solitary emperor. "How did you know?" Shuexiana's clone suddenly raised her head and looked at Chu Yang in surprise. Her eyes were filled with intense fear and panic. She seemed to feel that she was standing naked in front of everyone and had no more secrets. "Of course I know," Chu Yang said coldly. Chu Lo said impatiently, "I'm only doing this for you. No matter if it's a clone or the original body, why would I do this?" After her biggest secret was exposed, Shuexiana's clone seemed to have lost all her energy. She was stunned for a while before she lowered her head and said in a low voice, "It's like this. The original owner of this body is extremely jealous. She didn't allow other women to get close to Cloud Shangren, even us clones weren't allowed to get close to Cloud Shangren. However, she was born infertile. Cloud Shangren could only find other women to continue his bloodline, and every time he found one, Xuezian would take this woman into the Saint Emperor Palace and take good care of her. After she gave birth, she would silently let her be tainted with tears of beauties, and her body would swell. Her skin would fester and become unrecognizable. But she would say that it was caused by childbirth. Often, these women would commit suicide because of this. Everyone couldn't help but curse when they heard this. This Xuezian was really the most vicious woman in the world. She couldn't have children herself, so her husband found other women to have children with. After the children were born, she made them so miserable. What was Cloud Lord's identity? Based on Cloud Lord's judgment, any woman that he found pleasing to the eye would be a piece of cake to him. How could any of them be ugly? He believed that every single one of them was a peerless beauty. However, after such a woman was married, she would only have a few years of happiness at most. Once she gave birth to the child, she would immediately become a faceless yaksha. For a woman, as long as her looks were passable, once her face was disfigured, she would definitely die. That was a fate worse than death. He had nothing left to live for. What's more, these beauties were able to catch the eye of Master Yun. When a woman discovered that her originally fairy-like beautiful face had suddenly turned into a pig, she would not be able to bear it. What would happen if a pig was prettier than her? That was simply a tragedy. Instead of forcing him to commit suicide, it would be better to just kill him. It would also make it easier for women to accept. For women, it was only human nature to die for their beauty. It was absolutely not an illusion. He really deserves to die. Even Mo Qingwu couldn't help but curse. It could be seen that he was a man who specialized in destroying women. Moreover, it was a woman who specialized in destroying peerless beauties. How hateful. Chu Le snorted coldly and turned to leave. Following Xuezian instructions, they began to search the area. Mo Tianji, Chu Yang and the rest stared at this divine empress clone. There were a few sighs. She had such a peerless beauty, yet at the same time, she also had such a despicable and vile heart. He really didn't know how the heavens had managed to combine this extreme beauty with extreme viciousness, as well as extreme harshness and extreme ungratefulness when he was creating things. This was a mistake that absolutely shouldn't have happened. Therefore, when such a mistake happened, it would be a calamity to the world. Xuezian stood quietly. Although her arm was still bruised and ugly, her expression had already regained its usual calmness. At least on the surface, she really looked very calm. After watching for a while, Chu Yang turned his head and sighed. Mo Tianji seemed to know what he was sighing about. He said, "No need to sigh. This is just a clone." Chu Yang nodded. "It still feels a little uncomfortable." Xuezian's clone raised her head and looked at Chu Yang. "What's uncomfortable?" Chu Yang said coldly, "No matter what, you're still a divine empress clone. Furthermore, you have the cultivation of a peak saint. However, this time, not only are you afraid of death, but you also surrendered because of the poison. You don't even have any dignity or grace. This makes me feel very surprised, very unbelievable." Chu Yang explained in detail. He even added a series of adjectives at the end. This made Mo Tianji a little surprised. However, he immediately understood Chu Yang's meaning when he looked at him. He couldn't help but be shocked. Then, he started to listen attentively. Chu Yang was trying to find out the secret of clones. This point was extremely useful to him and the rest of the brothers present. Xuezian's clone smiled bitterly and said, "Do you think that the divine empress clone must be high and mighty? That she would rather die than submit? That she must have grace, strength of character, and insist on her so-called dignity? That she would rather die than submit, and that she would rather die than submit?" Chu Yang said seriously, "Shouldn't that be the case? That's why I have doubts about your performance today. In fact, I even despise you." The word despise poked at Xuezian's sore spot. She actually laughed coldly and said, "Of course, I'm Shwezianer's clone. This is an ironclad fact. However, Shwezianer and Lord Yun had no choice but to give us clones a physical soul in order to better control the Heaven Imperial Court. Although our souls are physical, we still have to be formed according to their wishes. Although the clone possesses great strength the moment it's formed, the formation of its personality still depends on the original body. One is marked by the company one keeps. Shwezianer's clone actually said such a sentence. Chu Yang nodded. I understand a little, but there's more that I don't understand. No matter what, your performance just now was a little embarrassing. Embarrassing? Embarrassing is better than losing one's life. When clones like us die, we'll completely disappear and cease to exist. Although we can't betray, we still have the right to live. If we're embarrassed, at least there's a slight chance of survival. But the original body is different. When the original body encounters such a situation, it can definitely die in battle and even drag you down with it. Because as long as there's still a clone, this clone can naturally evolve into a new original body after the death of the original body. She laughed coldly. That's why they have both magnanimity and integrity. But we don't have such magnanimity, because we don't have the right or the ability. Clones can naturally evolve into a new original body after the death of the original body. Chu Yang muttered to himself. Shwezianer's clone laughed loudly. You'll know sooner or later. But your current cultivation isn't at that stage yet. Solitary Emperor, although you can already defeat us clones, if you meet Lord Yun or Shwezianer's original body, they can still crush you in an instant. Their power can't be sensed unless you experience it yourself. She didn't say much, but Chu Yang already understood a lot. He smiled slightly and didn't refute. For someone who was about to die, it wasn't worth wasting his saliva. A white figure flashed, and Chu Le turned back excitedly. Have you found her? Shwezianer's clone asked nervously. What she was worried about wasn't whether Chu Le had been found, but whether Chu Le would keep her promise. Found her. You didn't lie indeed. Chu Le smiled satisfactorily. Then, will you cure me of the poison? Shwezianer's clone asked. This was what the clone was most concerned about. She was really afraid of the unfavorable changes that could happen in the next moment. Of course, Chu Le agreed readily. I'm a person of my word. I'll cure you of the poison now. As she spoke, she waved her hand, and a wisp of white smoke appeared. The next moment, the wisp of white smoke circled around Shwezianer's arm. Almost at the same time as they came into contact, they saw that the greenish-purple line was gradually retreating. Finally, a string of black blood beads appeared at the tip of Shwezianer's finger, and her skin instantly returned to normal. Thank you. Shwezianer was relieved, and her body actually swayed a little. You can leave. Chu Le emphasized, since I promised to let you go, I won't go back on my words. Shwezianer heaved a sigh of relief and turned to leave. But before she could take a step, she stopped in her tracks. She seemed to have turned into a wooden statue. Then, she turned around abruptly and screamed, How do you expect me to leave? Where's my cultivation? Because at this moment, she suddenly realized that the power that could overturn rivers and seas in her body had completely disappeared. She even felt tired after taking a step, not to mention soaring into the sky and transforming into a rainbow. What's going on? Chu Le said regretfully, Oh, I forgot to tell you. The prerequisite for this poison to be cured is that you have to pay the price of your entire cultivation. You won't have any power at all in the next 60 hours after the poison is cured. However, it's only 60 hours, only 3 days. I believe that if you were given a choice, you wouldn't choose to be poisoned to death, right? Plop. Shwezianer immediately sat on the ground. Her gaze was obscure, and she suddenly laughed bitterly. You're indeed lying to me. You're playing with me. You want to play me to death, Chu Le said seriously. When did I lie to you? I promised you that I would cure you of the poison and let you go. Didn't I do it now? She had indeed done it. Shwezianer's clone laughed bitterly. Chapter 2571. He looked up. The world pride had exceeded 8 million word. Suddenly, he was somewhat perplexed. Did I really write so much? Was this really written by me? Back then, the legend of Ling Tian had more than 2 million words, but when it reached 1 million, the plot couldn't continue. When it reached 3 million, the evil monarch of another world couldn't control himself, but this world pride was already 8 million words. Looking back, it was like a dream. He was somewhat disappointed, but, have you all realized one thing? Did you know, we still created a miracle in the land of unconsciousness? There were many books with more than 8 million words. But, when it reached 8 million words, only the world pride was still fighting on the monthly votes list. 8 million words were still fighting for the common cause. Only world-defying stage. We still haven't given up. We are still fighting. Facing this Jianghu, we can't lose. This is us. And only us. I am very proud. What I am even more proud of is, anyone who has written a novel knows that the more words there are, the harder it is to control. The later it is, the more complicated it is, and the more unclear it is, so I can only write slower and slower. So I am proud. Because, when it reached 8 million words, only I, Wind Conquers the World, am still wildly exploding. In the future, there will definitely be people who will surpass me, but now, I am proud. For the world pride's 8 million words. For our pride. For the miracle we created. For my own pride. I want to say, please cast your monthly votes. All of the world pride, let us celebrate once. Celebrate, because we are the only one, just like this. Because this is the world pride. Because we all belong to the world pride. Shared glory, shared pride. Recalling the past, the world pride. How difficult it was to debut. How many hardships, sisters hand in hand, brothers side by side. How could the heroes of the world be bitterly disappointed? 3 years of wind and frost cast a lofty bone, and millions of brothers rushed forward. One battle, shocking the clouds. Chapter 2572. Shuexian-Er's clone could only feel despair. Yes, Chula-Er had fulfilled her promise. However, Shuexian-Er's current body had no cultivation at all. She might not even be as strong as an ordinary woman. No matter who she met, whether it was a human or a beast, she would only die if she walked out of here. Wild beasts didn't care about how beautiful a woman was. They only cared about the desire for good food. No man would let go of such a weak and peerless beauty. But this peerless beauty's identity was so shocking. Then, they could only finish her off after they had done that thing. Even if no one made things difficult for her, with her current body condition, how could she cross hundreds of thousands of miles to find the saint and the real body? 30 hours without any cultivation was a very long period of time. It was enough time for anything to happen. It could happen thousands of times, or even more times. Shuexian-Er was stunned for a while. Then, she smiled bitterly and said, "So, I'm doomed. You were just fooling me, fooling me," she murmured, and her voice became more and more desperate, and more vicious. It was a kind of extreme hatred. Looking at Chula-Er's indifferent expression, she finally gave up all hope. Her devastatingly beautiful face revealed the most sinister smile as she said, "If there comes a day when I make a comeback, little girl, I definitely won't kill you, and I won't cripple you like how you've crippled me. I'll only cripple your cultivation and sell you to the lowest brothel. I'll let you experience the pleasure of being ridden by thousands of people. You'll live for 100,000 years, 1,000,000 years. Forever and ever." Before she finished speaking, a sword had already nailed her to the ground. Calamity sword. Chu Yang's eyes were cold. He said indifferently, "You won't make a comeback one day. I promise. Also, my promise isn't just limited to you. It's effective on Shuexian-Er's clone and your real body. You can wait underground." The Calamity Sword's devouring power was activated again. A soul that had completely collapsed was facing the unparalleled devouring power of the Calamity Sword. There was no chance for her to escape. Chu Yang wouldn't let go of anyone who dared to curse his sister like this. While everyone was resting in the Saint Emperor Palace, Missouri Tianji had already entered the palace to look for something. After a while, He walked out. He smiled bitterly, lucky. In his hands were several thick rosters. Sure enough, the experts of the Holy Emperor Palace have been sent to different places. The few of us came here. It's really just a gift. Mo Tianji grinned. Chu Yang laughed. His calamity sword flashed and disappeared. Instead, he went into Holy Emperor Palace to look for treasures. Although there were no experts here, there were definitely treasures. Moreover, there would definitely be a lot of them. It should be very, very, very special. After all, this was Holy Emperor Palace. The #1 sacred ground in Heaven Imperial Court. It was still okay if they had fewer treasures. A certain King Yang Luo, who hadn't robbed for a long time, was finally going to do it again. In fact, Chu Yang didn't need to deliberately control it anymore. Tribulation Sword could do these things on its own. Where are we going next? Do we need to take another detour? Chu Yang asked. No need. Mo Tianji smiled and said, wait for me to transmit this information to the Tianji Intelligence Department, and then announce it to the world. After that, we can travel day and night, and go straight to the big Western paradise. Mo Tianji smiled and said, you can't wait, but I can't wait either. Chu Yang nodded. He looked to the west and said softly, I really don't know. How is Duxing now? I'm really worried right now. While everyone was waiting for Tribulation Sword to come out, Mo Tianji stood next to Chu Yang, carefully considering something. After thinking for a while, he finally opened his mouth and said, Chu Yang, what do you think of this doppelganger? Chu Yang sighed and didn't open his mouth to speak. Mo Tianji also sighed along with him. I finally understand why at the level of Saint Monarch, one clearly has already touched the door to the next step, but still hasn't really taken another step forward. Chu Yang said deeply, there's a big chance that it's because of this doppelganger. Mo Tianji nodded, expressing his agreement. With this doppelganger, it's equivalent to not having most of the sense of danger. The more doppelganger, the safer the main body. Even if the main body dies, or even many of the doppelganger die, as long as one doppelganger is still alive, then this person can use this doppelganger to continue living. Moreover, it won't be long before the original body's strength can be recovered, just like being reborn. There's no loss at all. Moreover, one can create another doppelganger at any time to make up for the previous loss. In this way, the danger to oneself is indeed reduced to the minimum, and it's indeed the strongest life-saving method. There's no doubt about this. Chu Yang said, but, for martial artists, without danger, there's no pressure. And without pressure, how can one advance and take another step forward? But, once one has such a heaven-defying life-saving method, who would be willing to not use it? For the sake of a bleak future, one would give up such a wonderful life-saving method. As long as one has the slightest bit of intelligence, one would make a wise choice. Mo Tianji smiled bitterly and said, a few days ago, after my cultivation made another breakthrough, I faintly felt that I had naturally comprehended this method of creating doppelganger. But I've been hesitating, and I didn't dare to act rashly. This choice is really difficult. Even if I'm not tempted now, what about later? When I haven't taken another step forward for a long time, when there's a strong enemy attacking, when there's an enemy knocking on my door, will I give up my initial choice and create doppelganger to increase my chances of winning? After all, this temptation is really too great. Chu Yang nodded. The reason why I asked that question is because of this. I'm in the same situation now. It's after reaching this stage that one will understand the ability to create doppelganger, and a strong desire to create doppelganger. That's why I specifically asked about Shuexian Er's doppelganger. After creating a doppelganger, the master and the follower can cultivate at the same time, and the speed of cultivation can be increased by a lot, but the result is only to accumulate vital energy. It's useless for breaking through to a new level. In fact, it's even an obstacle. Moreover, among the top experts in the Heaven Imperial Court, as far as I know, the Demon Empress and the Eastern Emperor have never created doppelganger. Chu Yang said solemnly, therefore, I feel that, this doppelganger might be a kind of. He stared at Mo Tianji, and then both of them were stunned. After a long while, they said in unison, a cultivation trap. Then, both of their expressions changed. If they didn't have doubts about this secret technique while they were comprehending it, they really couldn't guarantee that they would give up on this heaven-defying life-saving method. Take Chu Yang and Mo Tianji as an example. Chu Yang might be willing to give up on this secret technique and continue to forge ahead without turning back. However, with Mo Tianji's personality of planning before acting and his temperament of looking at the big picture, he really might not be able to resist this temptation. Because, if this was a cultivation trap, then under normal circumstances, it was almost a fatal temptation that couldn't be resisted. The higher one's cultivation was, the higher one's status was, the more one would know how precious life was. Everything would come to an end after one day of impermanence, and nothing could be done after leaving. Everyone wanted to maintain such a high and mighty status. But at the same time, they also felt that in this world, there were too many dangers that could cause experts like them to lose their lives. No matter what level an expert was at, it was the same. And at this time, this kind of secret technique appeared. As long as one cultivated a doppelganger, one could eliminate these dangers. It was really the best choice. Not to mention, there were many additional benefits to cultivating a doppelganger. Who could resist the temptation of such a magical secret technique? And there was the most obvious example. The heavenly emperor of purple clouds, Zi Hao, didn't use the doppelganger technique. Once he died in battle, there was no chance for him to make a comeback. Under such a powerful example, who could resist the temptation to cultivate this perfect secret technique of creating a doppelganger? But once it was started, it meant that one had jumped into a trap. From then on, one could practice the technique, improve one's cultivation, and purify one's power. But if one wanted to take a step further and jump out of the range of this heavenly imperial court, it would become something impossible. The path of cultivation was equivalent to coming to an end here. But, if one continued to cultivate, it was also full of danger. Who knew, one might be struck by the heavenly tribulation in the next moment. So, the temptation of this doppelganger could be imagined. So, this secret technique of creating doppelganger, Chu Yang said word by word, we can't use it. No one can use it. We definitely can't use it. You can't even think about it. Chu Yang deliberately emphasized it 3 times. Mo Tianji said in horror, yes, I'll inform all the brothers immediately. I must inform all the brothers at the first possible moment. The lifespan that the heavens give everyone is actually only a little more than 100 years in the first place. To be able to live for more than 100 years is already considered a long lifespan. Some people decline due to various reasons, and there are even some who die prematurely at birth. But those are all personal opportunities. Chu Yang said deeply, and the path of cultivation is to go against the heavens and change one's fate. From the moment one starts to cultivate, one starts to fight against the heavens to take back what one is about to lose. To extend one's future path infinitely. On this path, with every step forward, the pressure one has to endure is also a step greater. So, in human nature, there is an instinctive desire to seek good fortune and avoid calamity. This may be a benefit that the heavens give to ordinary people, but to cultivators, every such opportunity is actually a trap that will bury one's future. The more perfect an opportunity looks, the more likely it is to hide a great danger. To go against the heavens and move forward, how can there be any leeway? So, we can't do it. Chu Yang's voice was awe-inspiring and full of decisiveness. We can't stop here. Chapter 2573. Perhaps when we've truly transcended the control of heaven and earth, it won't be too late to talk about this doppelganger. Chu Yang smiled. But when that time comes, do we still need to create doppelganger? Mo Tianji also laughed heartily. Only after Chu Yang had finished speaking did Mo Tianji truly dispel the idea of creating doppelganger. Mo Tianji himself also recognized that this was a trap, but this temptation was really too tempting. It was practically an exceptional secret technique tailor-made for people like Mo Tianji. Therefore, Mo Tianji having this kind of idea was actually a reasonable matter. Let's ask, with Mo Tianji's intelligence and wisdom, he had this kind of impulse, let alone other people. Because doppelganger, could obtain too many advantages, and could do too many things. For example, right now, if Mo Tianji had a doppelganger, his main body could accompany Chu Yang to battle here, and the other doppelganger could be in the big western paradise to help Jiu Duxing deal with the crisis. If there was one more, he could even take care of Ao Xieyun's side. This was really an irresistible temptation. Therefore, when Mo Tianji had learned about the doppelganger secret technique, he had been so excited. With this method, he could even more perfectly deal with the unfavorable situation before him, and even many subsequent problems would no longer be a problem. But Chu Yang had directly and mercilessly cut off this delusion. The saint is also an extremely intelligent person, but he still chose to create doppelganger. Mo Tianji let out a long sigh of relief. His heart was somewhat afraid, and his back was also covered in cold sweat. With the saint's intelligence, he couldn't have not known that this was a cultivation trap. But he still chose to do so. This was what he had thought a moment ago. It was completely the same. Perhaps only a sufficiently intelligent person would step into this cultivation trap, a person who truly wholeheartedly pursues the martial path. On the contrary, they wouldn't fall into this trap. Chu Yang somewhat couldn't help but laugh as he looked at Mo Tianji. Among us brothers, the one with the strongest desire should be you. Tianji. Mo Tianji's face flushed red, and there was an intense embarrassment. Like Jiu Duxing and Dong Wushong, these two people would rather die than create doppelganger. Jimo and Luo Ku Di. His way of thinking and acting is closer to Jiu Duxing and Dong Wushang, while Ao Xieyun and Xie Danqiong are closer to you. He definitely won't cultivate it. His nirvana divine ability is more advantageous than the cloning secret skill. He is the one we don't need to worry about. Chu Yang said, therefore, we only need to remind Ao Xieyun and Xie Danqiong. That will do. Tianji. Chu Yang muttered. Finally, he said, on the path of cultivation, there are times when you don't need to be so smart. You know what I'm talking about. Mo Tianji nodded deeply. His face was full of vigilance. Chu Yang said, I've heard of such a story. Outside a village, there's a forest. No one has ever been able to pass through this forest. Naturally, no one knows what it's like outside the forest. According to ancient legends, this is the land of the jungle. There were man-eating demons. There were wolves, insects, tigers, leopards, and countless dangers. As long as a person went in, there was no hope of coming out alive. Everyone has been instilled with this kind of thinking by the elders in the village since they were young. There were also many smart people who tried to solve this mystery. However, as long as they walked into the jungle, they never came out again. It was as if the legend in the village was so unbreakable and unshakable. Until one day, someone made a bet that whoever went in and still came out alive would have to marry the most beautiful girl in the village. So, a young man walked in. But not long after he walked in, he died. Another young man also walked in. But he also died. For some reason, when he reached a certain place, he died just like that without any warning. Finally, a very simple and honest young man expressed his willingness to try. The people in the village usually called him a fool. Because other than working, he didn't know anything else. But he loved that girl deeply. In order to marry her, he was willing to try. So, he also walked into the jungle. Chu Yang paused. 2 months later, he came back alive. He also brought back many things from outside the jungle. He said that there was a city outside the jungle, a very big city. As long as you can pass through the jungle, you will be able to reach it. Everyone was very curious. Why were so many smart people unable to pass through the jungle, but only this half-fool could pass through it? A few brave young men followed the fool through the jungle. They finally understood that in this jungle, there was actually not much danger. It was just that the jungle was too dense, and there were some hidden dangers like poisonous snakes or poisonous mushrooms. At most, there were only a few wolves. As long as you were brave enough to walk forward, you would definitely be able to get out. But the truly terrifying part of this jungle was that it was really big, deep, and dense. Without a few days of continuous walking, it was impossible to pass through it. And every night, the surrounding atmosphere would become abnormally terrifying. So many smart people who walked in, but most of them did not die in the jungle. In those hidden dangers of the jungle, they were all scared to death by themselves. But a simple-minded and honest person who did not think of anything finally walked out and came back. Because his heart did not have so many distracting thoughts. Chuyang said, "Let's not talk about how interesting this story is, or how illogical and unreasonable it is, but this is the story. I'm done." The usually calm and collected Mo Tianji was already sweating profusely. After a while, he said in a low voice, yes. He understood the hidden meaning behind Chuyang's story. Most of the time, people needed to be smart and intelligent in life. Smart and intelligent could solve most of the problems in life. However, under certain circumstances, only by stubbornly walking forward could one reach the other side. As the saying goes, more haste, less speed. What one can see but not reach, this also applied to smart people. If this story was told to others, it might not have any effect. But to Mo Tianji, it was like a blow to the head. Wisdom imbuement. A voice full of anticipation said, "Then, what happened next? Did this young man marry the girl he loved?" The two of them turned and saw Chula Mo Lei Sai Niang, Wu Qianqian, Tai Butian. These women were waiting expectantly for Chuyang to continue. They did not care at all about the logic behind this story. To women, what they really cared about was not the logic but whether this young man married the girl in the end. Logic and what not were not important to women, including the careless Sai Niang, the talented Tai Butian, and Wu Qianqian who was once the king of Hell Chu. They were all waiting, anticipating a perfect ending. Towards this mentality of women, Chuyang and Mo Tianji were both dumbfounded, speechless, and even at a loss of what to do. "Oh my!" Mo Qingwu and Chu Lu'er pouted in dissatisfaction. "What exactly are you thinking about? Did that person marry the girl or not? Hurry up and tell us, isn't it just a matter of a sentence?" Chuyang was speechless. "You all know that it's just a matter of a sentence. Can't you finish it yourself? Do you have to ask? Besides, in this story, is it important whether he marries the girl or not? It was completely, not even close. Women, what exactly are you thinking?" Of course, to Chuyang and Mo Tianji, they already knew that they could not reason with women. They were all people who had been taught a painful lesson. If they tried to reason with women, there would only be one outcome, and that was a very, very tragic outcome. Digression. This principle is definitely applicable to most men and women. Please take this as a warning and do not try to change this principle. Otherwise, you will also end up very, very miserable. There was an awkward silence for a long while. This story has actually already ended here. Mo Tianji spread out his hands, speechless. Who cares about whether the girl is married or not? These are two completely different things. That won't do. That's even more wrong. Isn't the core of this story about a lover getting what he wants? Chu Le and Mo Qingwu objected fiercely. So, it's definitely not finished, right? Big brother, hurry up and tell us, stop beating around the bush. Did that silly boy marry the girl or not? What else is there after that? Chuyang was tongue-tied for a while. Finally, he said with a black face, after this young man went back, he married the girl and then the story came to an end. He had originally intended to go along with the women's tastes and express their end, but this sentence caused even more trouble. How did it come to an end? And, how did he marry the girl? What was the reaction of the villagers? Were they envious? There were also many who were jealous, right? What did the girl say? Would she have agreed so easily? This matter itself is unfair to that girl. Just a stupid bet ruined that girl's future for the rest of her life. Yes. How did this honest young man follow up? Even if they really got married, what about their wedding? Didn't that honest young man go to the city? He must have some decent betrothal gifts. What exactly were they? Was there anyone in the village who was jealous? Then, they sabotaged it. This is an inevitable contradiction in the drama and an inevitable development. Your story is not exciting at all. It's just bones and no meat. It's not interesting at all. You really don't have any creative talent, sigh. How many children did they have in the end? Chu Yong fell into a daze. If he had a choice or a medicine for regret, Chu Yong could swear to the heavens that he would never tell Mo Tianji any boring story. Wasn't that just asking for trouble for himself? And it was asking for trouble. A huge trouble. Chu Yong wailed in his heart. Help! You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.